know as soon as we're live, even though it says that we're not quite yet. We're live.
We are live. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Jim Dill. I'm the chair of the IFW committee. And this morning, I think we've got 6 bills to work. So it's a whole work session this morning, no public hearings. As usual, it's electronic meeting. Make sure you're unmuted when you go to talk. If we need to ask for anybody that the committee wants to hear from or ask questions of, we need to let them in, or Linda will let them in from the attendee list. And as I say, we will go through here. This is a kind of a discussion. It's a work group amongst ourselves. So we do get to ask questions of anybody that we need to ask the questions of. And with that, I think what we'll do before we, of course, start, I will go through and ask members to introduce themselves, and I will start with Representative John Martin.
Good morning, John Martin, House District 151, from Allagash to Fort Kent, down Route 11 to Oxbow.
Representative Alley.
Yes, sir. Robert Alley from down in, good morning first. Yeah, and I'm Robert Alley from down in Jonesboro Beals area, and I cover 12 communities in District 138.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Danny Martin. I represent House 150, located in northern Aroostook County.
Representative Terrio.
Good morning. I am Representative Tim Terrio. I represent District 79, which is Albion, most of Benton, China, and Unity Plantation.
Representative Lyford.
Good morning, Peter Lyford, District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and Vesey.
Representative Landry.
Good morning, Scott Landry. I represent the towns of Farmington and New Sharon, District 113.
Senator Curry.
Good morning, Senator Dill. I'm Chip Curry. I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County.
Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and part of Richmond.
Representative Mason.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Dill. I'm Representative Rick Mason, and I serve the great people of Lisbon.
And Representative Netta.
Good morning, everyone. Kathy Netto. I represent the town of Winslow and the other portion of Benton.
And on the phone, we have Representative Ordway.
Yes, good morning. I'm Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is most of the town of Standish.
Thank you all. And as I mentioned, I'm Senator Jim Dill. I represent District number 5, Northern Penobscot County. And with us today, we have our clerk, Linda LaCroix. And Linda will let people in and out and control the board here for us. And we have our analysts, Rachel Olson. And Rachel will give us summaries of all of our bills in our work sessions today as we move forward on each one. And with that being said, we'll go right into our first work session. I'll open up the work session on LD 199, an act to amend certain fish and wildlife laws and related provisions. And I will let Representative Landry run this one. This is my bill. So with that, Representative Landry.
Well, thank you, Senator Dill. Anybody? Oh, here we go. Senator Curry.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, Chairman Lyford, I just wanted to check in as to where the bill analyses were. I was expecting them in the committee materials by LD, and I just want to make sure I can follow along with those. So if you could direct me to the right place on the bill analysis, I'd appreciate it.
Rachel, do you have that?
I can. If you do not mind, I'd like to actually start by talking about where to find the materials today. And I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit on switching systems this morning, but I think we'll be okay. They are there. You should also have received an email. So everyone should have gotten an email from me this morning with them as well. But if, with your leave, Representative Landry, if I could talk about where the electronic LD files are located online.
Would you please?
Yes. In the email I sent this morning, I also included a tutorial on how to locate the electronic LD files. IT put together this platform for legislators to try to keep all of the LD electronic materials in one location, including the testimony. And this new system will eliminate the need for you all to receive testimony through your emails. So this will consolidate it all into one location. I'm going to share my screen so that we can walk through the process so everyone can see it. And please let me know if you can't find them this morning and you'd like me to resend them. I'm happy to do so. Okay, I believe on the screen you should actually see two documents. One is the webpage for the state legislature, and the other is a document with screenshots. So in order to find an electronic LD file, this process is actually the same as finding your committee materials page. So you're going to click on committees, and you'll locate the IFW committee from the drop-down menu. So you should be pretty familiar with this page. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a little bit jumping the gun here, so I'm going to show you where it would be, but the link's not actually there yet. So you're going to click on committee materials, just like you would have done in the past this session, and then committee meeting materials by LD. And then you'll find the LD that we're working on. So for example, we're working on LD 199 today. So normally, as you can see over here, when you open that, you would see a link to say electronic LD file. So those haven't been put in yet. I'm a little early. But normally that's where you would find it, right here. You'd be able to click on it and it would take you to all the information. Since that's not functioning yet, the way to get there is to return to this page with our calendar, the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife page. And you have to find the date of the public hearing. And that's the confusing part, which is why the link will be in the committee materials section moving forward. So in this case, the public hearing for LD 199 was on February 10th. So for any of the LDs on their public hearing date, you'll be able to see there's this icon here of a document. And if you click on that, that's going to take you to the electronic LD file. Do not click on the words public hearing. That will take you somewhere else. You have to click on the icon of the document. And that brings you to a page that's going to have all of the public hearings. So you'll see here the LD number and its title. And then listed below, you'll find everyone that registered to give oral testimony or who submitted written testimony. So you're going to locate the document, the LD that you're looking for, and click on the down arrow. And that's going to pull up the information. If you click sort by name, that will sort alphabetically, and that's actually going to pull up the bill analysis, and anything coming from my office will read at OPLA. So that will pull up at the top, and it'll be titled for whatever the document it is. Bill analysis, current statute, materials submitted by the department. So we'll have a title and it'll say at OPLA. And then you'll also be able to see individuals who either submitted written testimony or who registered to speak and their position. And as you can see in the screenshot, it would be color coded if it was for or against. Neither is not color coded. So this is now your electronic LD file, and everything will be located here. And you can see the bill analysis for today's work posted. And that will automatically open as a PDF. So no matter what platform you're using, you should be able to open that. And the links embedded in the PDFs will work. I know that's a whole new process, and I and Mr. Clark will be happy to go over this numerous times as necessary over the coming weeks to get us familiar with this process. Like I said, today is actually its first real rollout day. Okay, so with that, before I move on, are there any questions related to that, or is there anyone that would like me to just resend the information this morning?
Would you resend that to me, please? I didn't get your email, Rachel.
Yes.
And I believe Senator Representative Alley's in the same position. Representative Hepler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say that I got to use this last week in marine resources, and I think it works really well. It's just one screen, then rather than moving through email and trying to follow along. And yeah, I looked this morning about an hour ago and it wasn't up, but I think this is great.
Thank you. Senator Curry?
Thank you, Representative Landry. I just wanted to check in. So as of today, we'll be just going to the public hearing and clicking on the document icon and finding the right bill. But in the future, that will be different. We'll be able to go through the committee materials. As you go through today, can you just can you point out what date the public hearing was so that we can follow along that way?
Yes,
each of the bills?
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Representative Mason?
Yes, I was wondering if I get that sent to my email also, resent.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And my apologies, because the system was new, also to myself. They didn't come out as promptly as normal.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Anybody else need the link sent, or were you going to send it to everybody, Rachel?
I can certainly resend it to everyone. I did send individually to those that requested. Otherwise, it goes out to the entire committee as a whole.
Okay.
Which
Thank you.
I'll do again.
Yep.
A lot of emails this morning. We're actually trying to pare that down.
That would be nice. Are we ready for the analysis? Rachel, you want to take a minute?
I think I'm ready. I need to just switch a few windows around. And let's see here. So LD 199, which we're beginning with, their public hearing was on February 10th. All right, if everyone is ready, I am also ready to go, and we'll share my screen again. All right. So, all right, so we're going to begin this morning with LD 199. This is an act to amend certain fish and wildlife laws and related provisions. And this is sort of an omnibus bill from the department. So it does many things. So I'm going to walk us through this list, and then we'll talk about some of the testimony and some of the notes or issues identified. And then I can answer specific questions about any of these parts that I haven't necessarily identified. So this bill defines upland game species. It provides for the Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife to set a daily bag limit and possession limit for upland game species, and makes violating these limits a Class E crime, for which a fine of not less than $200 plus $50 for each animal taken in violation may be adjudged. It allows the department to enforce the law prohibiting the abuse of another person's property against persons who abuse another person's property, but who may not be involved in an activity such as hunting, fishing, or trapping, as in current law. So under current law, it states that those abuses have to have happened while the person is hunting, fishing, or trapping, and this removes that provision. It also allows a person found to have violated that law to be ordered to pay restitution to the landowner for damages, and that's a new addition to that section. It provides for the revocation of a hunting license of a person convicted of night hunting and found to have been in the possession of a thermal imaging device at the time of the offense. It provides for the revocation of any license, permit, or registration issued by the department, not just hunting and fishing licenses, of a person who is convicted of destroying, tearing down, defacing, or otherwise damaging a property posting sign. It prohibits domestic violence offenders and certain nonviolent juvenile offenders from obtaining or possessing any license or permit issued by the department that authorizes a person to hunt with a firearm. And that is in line with Title 15, which I have included. It allows a person who has lawfully killed or trapped and registered a bear to sell, without a hide dealer's license, the fat not attached to the meat of that animal. It clarifies that a person may not take or possess reptiles or amphibians from the wild for export, sale, or commercial purposes. It specifies that a person may not keep bear, deer, moose, or wild turkey without registering the animal for more than 18 hours after the animal was harvested. It requires all the edible meat of a bear, deer, or moose to be presented for registration, along with evidence of the animal's sex. It also allows those animals to be dismembered for ease of transportation, and allows the hunter to leave parts that are not of use away from the public view. It requires a hide dealer to keep a true and complete record of those buying and selling bear fat. Because we're adding the buying and selling of bear fat into statute, it adds that to the record keeping portion under the hide dealer's license. It allows a special hide dealer's license holder to commercially sell or barter the heads and untanned hides of bear that are butchered in the license holder's place of business. It makes a special hide dealer's license valid for a full year commencing January 1st, rather than a partial year commencing August 1st. And that's more in line with the regular hide dealer's license, which is also for a full year. And it amends the definition of owner for the purpose of registration of a snowmobile, watercraft, or ATV to include a person having equitable interest in the snowmobile, watercraft, or ATV, which entitles the person to possession of the vehicle. And this puts all three of these categories in line together. So the language is the same. All right, does a lot. In terms of testimony, in terms of people who supported the bill, this brings simplification, adds consistency and alignment with current practices related to fish and wildlife. There were some suggestions, which I'll bring up in the amendment section in just a moment, but also to note that a lot of time went into cleaning up and clarifying the current statutes. We had one person testifying in opposition, and it was specifically related to the collection of amphibians and reptiles. So they believe it creates a requirement that all Maine consumers wishing to purchase legally collected reptiles or amphibians would have to obtain collector's permits, a collector's permit. And then neither for nor against also had some possible amendments in there. Eliza Donahue from Maine Audubon spoke to us about removing spruce grouse from the list of upland game species. There's no hunting season for spruce grouse, but every other species on the list has an open hunting season. And wanting to avoid any confusion about a possible hunting season for that species, which is already in decline. And another suggestion that you might consider requiring hunters to take out and dispose of gut piles, which if you did could save some eagles and other birds who consume discarded parts. So that brings us to the three suggested amendments during testimony. A proposed amendment to strike out spruce grouse from the list of upland game species. A proposed amendment to section 12304-B, subsection 4, that would require disposal of parts where they cannot be consumed by wildlife. And a proposed amendment to allow all bones other than the head to remain in the forest, and to clarify what constitutes proof of sex. Okay, I identified two possible issues or things of note for us to consider today. In section 1 of the bill, and I do have the bill open over here. I realize it's probably small on your screen. And I don't know if I can make that slightly bigger. So section 1 related to the definition of upland game species, a few pieces of information of note. Upland game was previously defined for the purposes of the section the definition is in, which is the start of open season on upland game. That definition is as snowshoe hare, gray squirrel, ruffed grouse, and bobwhite quail. The proposed new definition also includes porcupine, woodchuck, ring-necked pheasant, and spruce grouse. So things of note, porcupine and woodchuck both have no closed seasons. Spruce grouse has no open season. In current statute, pheasant is considered a game bird and is regulated under game bird hunting. If including pheasant in the definition of upland game, the committee may want to consider moving other sections related to pheasants to the new subchapter on upland game species hunting, or removing pheasant from the list of upland game, as it's already regulated in statute elsewhere. And additionally, related to pheasants, the term ring-necked pheasant is not used anywhere else in Title 12. Instead, the current statutes just use the term pheasant. So I'm not sure if it's necessary to include ring-necked, or if we could just move forward with the word pheasant. Couple of things to consider in the definition of upland game. In section 2, and this is a question that came up during the public hearing, I believe from Senator Curry, specifically relating to leaving open any gate or bars on another person's land. If we're removing while fishing, hunting, or trapping from this section, could this be misconstrued to mean someone's fence or their walkway gate if you're in the city or the suburbs? It's possible it could be misconstrued to mean that. we could consider clarifying gate or bars by providing more of an explanation of the type of gate or bars. I think we all know what we mean by this, but we might need to consider adding additional language to make that more clear. Okay, fiscal impact has not yet been determined. I've provided links to all the statutes that are referenced or being dealt with. You'll also find the bill does repeal sections of statute, and I've included those sections here for your reference. Section 11857, the unlawful possession of ruffed grouse. This is being removed as ruffed grouse is now a part of upland game and the newly added section in the proposed bill. And then section 12303-A, condition of animal presented for registration. And this is because they've reworked this section and is now being submitted in its new format. And then related, I've given you the statutes for reference because we only have a small portion of them. 12159, taking reptiles and amphibians from the wild. And the section here from Title 15 about possessions of firearms prohibited for certain persons, which is bringing about the updated portion in Title 12. That's pretty long. Okay, I am going to stop sharing. I'm happy to reshare the screen if need be, but I know it's a little easier for everyone to see each other and the hands if I stop. So with that, I am happy to take questions. There's a lot going on here.
Thank you, Rachel. Should we take a test on that before we get into questions and discussion?
If I do give you a test, it'll purely be a formative assessment.
Oh, thank you. Any questions for Rachel? Or let's begin the discussion. Representative Neto?
I do.
Actually, I have a question. What was the gates if you didn't close the gate, or I guess I missed that, because we have a camp and there's a gate across it, but we don't close it. So just wondering.
So I believe sort of as this operates, and I believe we have Colonel Scott is in the attendee list, and this is related to enforcement, so I'm sure he'd be happy to speak more about it as well. But of course, in the state, we have a lot of private land that's open to hunting by the landowner's discretion. And some of that is marked, and of course, people will have gates. This could also be agricultural fields, so for cattle gates, for example. So I think it's referring to those types of gates and fences. And if we're removing fishing, hunting, or trapping, it's possible this section could be misconstrued. Like I said, I think we all know what it's referring to, but without a clarifier, it could be misconstrued. And I believe Colonel Scott is here. He could speak more to that if the committee would like.
Yes, Colonel Scott?
Sure. So that abuse of property, excuse me, statute has been in place for a long time, and it's just like Rachel said, it's really a landowner relations based statute that requires somebody who's recreating on somebody's private property to leave gates, barways, fences, basically in the condition in which they found them. Probably leaves open any gate, which is old language, actually, it's not even new language, is deceiving to make people think that you have to close them all. It really comes down to leaving the gates and barways in the same condition that you found them. If you have permission to hunt on somebody's land or to access somebody's land for any purpose, and you go through, the expectation would be that you close the gate. Or if, as Representative Neto said, if you have a gate on the way to your camp and you went through that, there'd be no expectation that you would close it behind you if it was already open. So what the statute does is currently, if I'm on your property, you've given me permission, or the property is unposted, and I'm engaged in hunting, fishing, or trapping, and I either go through your gate and leave it open, or I put a metal object, I screw a metal object into your land into your trees to erect an observation platform, or I tear down a posted sign. If you have land that's posted and I tear down the signs so that I can now access it and say I didn't know it was posted, the statute currently requires that we show that you were engaged in fishing, hunting, or trapping. Our efforts with this amendment with this bill is to take that language out so that for any reason that you're on somebody's private land and you fail to leave a gate or a barway in the condition you found it, you trample crops, you tear down signs, that you can be held accountable for that. Whether you're, fiddleheading, antler picking, antler searching, or bird watching, for that matter. I mean, if you're tearing down someone's posted sign, it doesn't really matter why you were there. That's obviously not appropriate conduct. As far as will this extend to the gate to my sidewalk? That's not at all the intent of it. I mean, I guess I could have extended it that way in the past if I was on my way to go fishing and I stopped at my neighbors and left their gate open, but that's not the intent of this law at all. This is, recreating or consumptive or non-consumptive use on private land.
So it wouldn't have anything to do with a right of way, because we have a right of way. Just wanted to clarify that.
Correct. I mean, really the expectation is if you're on land that you do not own and you have permission to be there, that you leave the land or any gate or barway in the same condition that you found it.
Senator Curry.
Thank you. I think this is based on the question I asked, which was really kind of a theoretical increase of scope of the law. And I found the answer is sufficient that I'm not concerned about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just note that no change really is necessary at this time. The bill will be looked at by the legal reviewer before it moves forward. So if at that point it came up, we could certainly bring it back to address that section. But I just wanted to make note of that just in case.
Thank you, Colonel Scott. Any other questions or more discussion? Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. The night vision piece in that, what's the significance of that, maybe I could ask?
Colonel Scott?
I think he's coming back in, I think.
Is he coming in?
Sure, I understand, Representative Lyford. You asked about the night vision. So currently, if you are apprehended while night hunting and you're using night vision to assist you, there's an aggravated penalty for that. Okay, you can, if you're night hunting legally, which is possible for certain species, you can use night vision. But let's say you're deer hunting at nighttime. Okay, we all know that's illegal. There's an aggravated penalty. There's a separate technology you've seen on TV, on helicopters, and so forth. It's called FLIR, forward-looking infrared. And basically it sees heat. So you see the changes in temperatures of things. So both during the day and during the night, it operates like night vision. You can actually use FLIR during the day as well. And if you're legally night hunting, you can use FLIR at nighttime as well. And that's become very popular amongst folks as well. If you say you're coyote hunting in the wintertime at night, a coyote which is much, much more warmer than the snow around it, it shows up a different heat signature than the environment around it. Again, if you're found to be hunting illegally at nighttime and you're using that type of a device, that's an aggravated, this bill is looking to make that an aggravated penalty, kind of to lump it in the same as night vision. They both enhance your ability to see things at nighttime.
Thank
So
you.
it only really affects somebody if they're apprehended while they're hunting illegally.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you mentioned coyotes. What other animals are you allowed to hunt legally at night?
Coyotes and raccoons. They got all of them.
Any more questions for Colonel Scott?
And those are both representative. They're both guided by special permits and seasons, just like every other animal, even during the daytime.
Anybody else? I had a question for the commissioner. On the spruce grouse, should they be removed from that line?
Thank you, Representative Landry. And I'll ask Dan Scott to just to stay on through this, the rest of the questions for this bill, because he'll likely have the answer. I would say, you know, we had a lengthy discussion about this internally with respect to Eliza or Maine Audubon's comments. And the reason we chose to leave spruce grouse in there is because it gives us added ability for enforcement. Basically, it adds significant level of financial penalty for people who accidentally or intentionally harvest a species that's not allowed. Whereas if it's not listed there, we can just charge them for one time, but since it's listed there, we could charge them for each individual bird. Is that accurate, Colonel?
Yes, so there's been a lot of discussion around that first piece about redefining upland game. Really, the bill, what it sought to address was, as I think I mentioned in my testimony, for someone who exceeds their bag limit greatly with ruffed grouse, spruce grouse, snowshoe hares, pheasants. We had a situation a few years ago where I think that there was a group that was 70 some, I think the total in the end, it was 68 snowshoe hares over their limit. And so the way the bill is currently written, it's just, you know, exceeding your bag limit, period. It didn't give us a way, I mean, that the person who exceeds their bag limit on snowshoe hares by one hare should be held to a different account than somebody who exceeds their bag limit by 68 hares. So the bill really seeks to clarify that and make it so that for each hare you're over the limit, it's an extra $50. In doing so, we realized in the forward piece of under the definitions of Title 12, we actually didn't have a definition of upland game. And the piece that Rachel pointed out, Ms. Olson pointed out in the beginning under 10.954, that's very specific to that section. It's not to the whole part, the whole title. So we went to our rules, which, you know, fur-bearing animals are one type of an animal that we classify, and upland game was defined there, and spruce grouse was included in that. So we just used that same language from our rule. Like the commissioner said, the reason I think in this situation it's even more important to include spruce grouse. The bill seeks to protect those species which need protection. And so if somebody were to kill 20 spruce grouse over their limit, as opposed to somebody who kills one, they'd be held to the same standard as someone who shot one. And where these birds typically require even further protection, we would offer that more than ever, they're likely should be included in that definition and under that statute. I do believe Audubon or the folks that spoke had a question about that, and I've since spoken to Ms. Townsend, and she, I think it clarified it for her, and she asked me if she was not on here to let the committee know that she was all set with our recommendation. I don't know if she's on today or not. Thank you.
Sounds like the colonel splitting hairs here.
Thank you, Colonel. Representative Danny Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot to digest here. Based on the testimony and the several proponents, and my understanding, there was only one person who testified in opposition to the original bill. I guess I'd be okay with the original bill. However, it'd be great if we could discuss some of Rachel's technical issues and recommended amendments. And then from there, we can take a look at the other amendments being proposed by members of the public and go from there. But there's a lot to digest here, folks. So I don't know, Rachel, just your thoughts. Maybe it'd be great that we take a look at your technical amendments and then move forward in some form or fashion.
I think that's a reasonable way to proceed. Having listened to Colonel Scott and Commissioner Camuso, I identified some things about the definition, although there really isn't a problem having a definition of upland game species in the definition section. And then in the open season on upland game section, pulling out what's actually meant or which animals are specifically meant for that section. There really isn't a problem with that. I was just bringing forward sort of the differences in the types of animals. I would say the one that's worth just thinking about in terms of a change we might want to make is, and again, I'm going to defer a little bit maybe to Colonel Scott or maybe a biologist. We use the word pheasant. We don't distinguish ring-necked pheasant. I believe ring-necked is just the term for common pheasant. Pheasant are not native to the state. And that's a semantic thing to remove the word ring or the phrase ring-necked from the word pheasant, just to be in line with the rest of the references to pheasant in statute.
Commissioner? Did you have something
Thank you. No, well, I would just recommend that we just make it consistent, but ringneck pheasant is the actual name of that bird. So there are other species of pheasants in other countries. And so we do on occasion get Japanese pheasants here. So my preference would be to leave ringneck pheasant. And then if they need to do, a language update elsewhere in Title 12, that would be fine. But the name of the bird is ringneck pheasant.
Thank you.
And I think that is fine. And I can certainly check to see if in doing that, they would want to update the other references to it, to rename it to its biological name.
Thank you.
Scott?
Senator Dill.
Thank you. Question on the pheasant issue. I know when certainly I've seen when people are raising pheasants, on occasion they've had mixed in there. You've had golden pheasant and that type of thing. So if they release those, is it against the law to shoot them? And if so, that's where the term pheasant may.
So pheasant may be right. Colonel, do you want to weigh in? Do we have? I don't know how many other species of pheasants people are bringing in, but there is a difference between pheasant and ringneck pheasant. So if we use pheasant for its inclusiveness, then we should just use it everywhere. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was unaware that there are other than ringneck pheasants being released. I mean, there may be in certain dog trial situations where they're then immediately killed. But as far as pheasants out on the landscape being released, if that was occurring, I wouldn't know that personally right now. It can go either way. I guess I was unaware that there were golden pheasants being released. And
yeah, I didn't even know
on the landscape for any period of time.
I would doubt that anybody would be releasing golden or sylvan. They're very, very expensive birds and very hard to raise. The only way they would be out loose is if they did escape from captivity.
If the statute didn't speak to anything other than ringneck pheasant, and there was, say, a silver pheasant out, it would be just like livestock. Then you'd be prohibited from shooting at somebody's personal property, so to speak, or it's a chicken or a rooster.
Yeah, thank you. Any more discussion? Questions on other part of the simple bill?
John Martin, I think, has his hand up, Representative.
You got me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, in reference to, it's on page 4, dealing with the time limit for registration of wild animals. And let me just begin by saying it doesn't apply to me because we register at camp. And so but beyond where I am, if you're, let's say, beyond the Allagash or the St. John, and there are locations there, it's going to be more than 18 hours. And very often they may just wait, if they killed it the day before and harvested that, they may wait the next day before they come down to civilization, so to speak. So I wonder if there's this would apply primarily to bear and deer, not to moose, because obviously moose is a different issue. And whether or not there's something that could be drafted that would basically provide a flexibility for those who are northern Penobscot, northern Aroostook, and in those areas. I mean, whether it could apply to all along the Canadian border.
Who would we direct that to, Commissioner?
I guess to the commissioner or to Dan.
Yeah, I think Colonel Scott can take this one.
So, Representative Martin, thank you. Currently, and obviously the whole statute's not listed out there, in the unorganized territories, it's a 7-day limit.
That's what I was wondering, but it's
excuse me, to register a deer, bear, or moose. This is really
that's
just
what I was wondering.
Organized town. Years ago, it used to be 12 hours. We extended it to 18 hours. The issue with that particular statute is where it says may not be kept at home or a place of storage. Folks were interpreting that to mean, well, if I never bring it home, the 18 hours doesn't begin. And the intent of that statute is from the moment that you reduce the animal to your possession is basically you put your transportation tag on it in an organized town. You now have 18 hours to get it to a registration station.
I guess I'm not seeing the rest of the law, so obviously I'm just reacting to what's in the bill. Okay, I'm fine.
Yes, sir. So it'd be 7 days up there.
Thank you.
And if I may, in the bill analysis, the current statute is linked, and I'm happy to share it if anyone would like to see what section Representative Martin is referring to.
Thank you, Rachel. Any more discussion? Any more questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Commissioner?
I guess I would just like the opportunity to discuss the proposed amendment that would require disposal of parts so they cannot be consumed by wildlife. I'm not sure that we don't feel this is particularly necessary, nor will it be all that beneficial for upland game in particular. The majority of issues that I think this comment is referencing is really gut piles from deer or from the deer processors, not upland game. I don't think it's practical to ask folks to carry their carcasses for upland game out. We haven't talked about this internally, so I'm just kind of going on the fly here. Colonel, do you have thoughts on this?
Rachel, could you mention where that amendment would be? Would it be under the condition of under 12-304?
Yeah.
Yes.
Subsection 4. So we could certainly work on educational programs to try and encourage people to at least kind of hide their game or their carcass or the gut piles for upland game. But I'm not convinced.
That would be a major shift in how people traditionally handle, gut piles and carcasses and so forth for big game. And I would offer there's certain times of the year that depending on where you're at and how cold it is, that you'd have a challenge to bury what remains of your deer because the ground might be frozen. So like the commissioner said, we haven't really spoken to that internally around this bill. We've talked about it with some other issues in the past that in the future I can see some of them potentially being addressed, but to require folks to make their carcasses that they leave in the woods, any parts of them, inaccessible to scavengers is would be a major change in traditional hunting methods. What the bill addresses is to remove them from view of basically the public on public roads and so forth, which has been a requirement of moose hunters for some time now, so that as you're driving around, you don't see a big pile of moose guts on the side of the road and to drag them out of view. But as far as to make them inaccessible to scavengers, I think that's a fairly significant change to make at this moment.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, the amendment that you're currently alluding to, is that what agency or who recommended that?
That was, sorry. That was just recommended in testimony.
By the department or by someone
No,
else?
by someone else.
Do you know?
I do. It was from John Glowa.
Okay.
Any more thoughts on that? Can we, Commissioner?
I will just thank you, Representative. Let the committee know, and we will be speaking to this again at a future bill, but the department has been working on a communication outreach strategy to try and encourage folks to use non-lead, in particular when they're deer hunting. And so we have a whole outreach strategy around that. We believe that approach is a much more effective approach. It's proven to be, I think, nationally much more widely accepted, and promoting the use of non-lead as opposed to requiring anything like this would be a major shift for everybody.
Would you be comfortable with leaving it as is in the bill? Commissioner?
I'm sorry, Representative, with the amendment, we are not comfortable with the amendment, no.
Okay. Any more discussion, questions? Senator Dill.
Thank you, Representative Landry. So then what I think I'm hearing from the department and kind of from our discussion is then basically we're content with the bill as presented, and any of the amendments that have been suggested, at least the department doesn't see the need for those amendments. Is that correct, Commissioner?
Okay.
Yes, Senator, that's accurate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Terrio.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that ought to pass.
Representative Alley, are you seconding that? You're muted. I believe Representative Alley seconded that. Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we want to make that change for add ringnecked before the word pheasant? Which would make it not to pass as amended, I think.
Commissioner Camuso?
I mean, I guess that's a little bit of hair splitting, literally. Use your pun, Senator Dill. But I mean, I think we would be fine just to. I'm trying to see where exactly the.
I believe, Commissioner, it actually says ringneck pheasant in there.
So
but
then I would just leave it as is. Yeah.
Okay. Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion made by Representative Terrio is ought to pass, and it does not include any amendments, and I understand that. But a question to Rachel or Representative Terrio, would your motion also include any housekeeping issues that Rachel has suggested, or are we all set, Rachel, with those?
I think we're all set. The notes I brought up are, I don't want to throw the pun of hair splitting out there for the third time. But if things do come up in legal review, I will of course bring it back if any of those small elements cause a problem. But my job is to bring it forward so the committee could discuss it. I believe we'll be all set moving forward.
I'm all set, Danny.
Thank you, Rachel. Any more discussion on the bill? Has been motioned, ought to pass. Seeing none, Linda, you want to take a roll call, please?
I certainly will. Starting with Representative Lyford,
Yes.
Representative Mason,
Yes.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Senator Curry,
Yes.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Terrio,
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
Representative Ali,
You're on mute.
I'm off now. Yes.
Representative Nadu,
Yes.
and Representative John Martin.
Yes.
So that makes 11 in favor. Senator Black is absent, and Representative Ordway is on phone. We'll have to call his in. So it's 11 in favor of ought to pass.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. With that, we'll end the work session on LD 199. 8 in favor, ought to pass. Thank you.
I believe that was
Senator-
11 in favor, Representative.
Was it 11? Oh. Thank you.
Yep.
And turn this over to Senator Dill.
Thank you. That has been closed, and now we'll open up the next work session, which is LD 223, an act to clarify Maine's fish and wildlife licensing and registration laws. And that was presented by Representative Ali. And with that, Rachel, I will ask you to give us the summary, please.
All right, LD 223, an act to clarify Maine's fish and wildlife and registration laws. This bill requires payment of a $50 reinstatement fee to reinstate a suspended or revoked license, permit, or registration under the inland fisheries and wildlife laws. It includes language that is consistent with all-terrain vehicle registration requirements in regard to the form and display of snowmobile registration numbers and stickers, and provides that a snowmobile registered after May 1st and prior to July 1st has a registration that is valid for the upcoming winter and expires June 30th of the following year. It also allows a non-resident junior trapper to purchase a trapping license at the resident junior rate. Proponents indicated that the non-resident junior trapping fee, which was actually just the non-resident trapping fee, is a significant barrier to entry for non-resident junior trappers who may wish to accompany a family member or friend on a trip to Maine, and the proposed lowering of the fee would also eliminate barriers to youth hunting or lower barriers to youth hunting. The proposed snowmobile registration changes are consistent with ATV registrations. The junior trapping license fees support the department's R3 efforts. R3 stands for recruitment, retention, and reactivation. And proposed changes for reinstatement fees would apply to all suspensions or revocations, and increases the fee to $50, which is in line with administrative costs incurred as a part of reinstating suspensions or revocations. No one spoke against, neither for nor against. Dave Trahan from SAM ILA mentioned that he would like to see the funds raised from the increased fees to go to support specific programs. And I believe he mentioned the landowner relations program specifically. A couple of amendments, suggestions from testimony and during the public hearing is a desire to see an ethics course requirement on every license reinstatement. And as I mentioned, to see the funds from these fees going into the specific program, such as the landowner relations program, and not just back into the general fund. There were a couple of questions that came up at the public hearing. One of them is, why do people get their licenses revoked or suspended? And that is a very long list. The reasons are outlined in Title 12, Section 10902. I've included that section here. It's in the electronic LD file. I've also hyperlinked to the online statute as well. And you could see that long list. It includes violations of the main criminal code, hunting while intoxicated, for example. So long list of reasons. Steve Wood raised the issue of ATV revocations and requiring an ethics course before the license is reinstated. The department shared what is currently in statute here regarding the reinstatement of ATV, snowmobile, and watercraft privileges after a person is convicted or adjudicated of a violation of Title 12, Section 10902, Part 10. And that mentions the ethics class. The section is included here, and I'll just scroll down to the bold part at the bottom that says, after that person has successfully completed an ethics course as required by the department and has successfully completed a safety course as required by the department that relates to the specific violation for which the person was convicted or adjudicated. So there is mention of the ethics course here in statute. Okay, notes or potential issues. So I've titled them here by the sections of the bill. So in Section 1 of the bill, it strikes the statutory reference to the definition of fine, but still refers to a fine. So we may need to add that section back in. And if you bear with me, I'm actually going to see if I can have this open. Sorry about shifting the screen a little. Here is what I'm referring to, the highlighted section. So they've struck, for the purposes of this subsection, fine has the same meaning as in Title 14, Section 3141, subsection 1. But we're still referring to fine, and we may need to add this section back in. Section 3. Yeah, kind of have to look at the whole statute here, and I'll certainly defer to the department on this in case I am not understanding this exactly correctly. But they're striking the word resident from paragraphs B and C to refer to person 10 years of age or older and under 16 or under 10. By using the word person and not resident, this opens it up to both citizen and non-citizen persons. But if you look at paragraph E, there is a restriction on non-citizens related to trapping. So if a non-resident is not a citizen of the United States, the non-resident may purchase a non-resident, adding the word adult, trapping license, but may not trap any species other than beaver pursuant to Section 12259, subsection 3. On the bill analysis, I've included that here, and that's non-resident trapping beaver. So a non-resident may not trap beaver in this state unless that non-resident state or province of residency allows Maine residents to trap beaver in that state or province. So it's by removing the word resident, it's possible these people under 16 are not bound to the rules around trapping related to non-citizens. I do have some suggestions if we feel we need to correct that. Section 6, which is the last section. All right, this new subsection refers only to annual fees, but the original section included both annual resident fees and the 3-day, 10-day, and seasonal non-resident fees. I believe that the intent is to include both resident and non-residents in the requirements to register, pay a fee, and the $1 processing fee. Here. So we may need to strike the word annual here to make sure that we're including those non-resident registrations as well. Also here in section 6, only a resident annual registration is valid for 1 year. Non-resident 3-day, 10-day, and seasonal registrations are valid for the dates specified on the registration. So we should, I think, add the word annual back into this section. So here, an annual registration or resident annual registration is valid for 1 year, commencing July 1st. And then section 6, again, section 6 actually outlines the form that registration takes. It's how it is currently done. So it states the registration number in the form of stickers issued by the commissioner must be clearly displayed on both sides of the snowmobile. If you look at subsection 12-A, paragraph A, subparagraph 2, under form of registration, it says the snowmobile registration must be in such form as the commissioner may determine. It's being determined up here under application and issuance, so we may want to bring those two in line. And I will mention, I believe this is how registration is currently done as determined by the commissioner. But it's stating it clearly in the proposed bill language. Okay, fiscal status is not yet determined, but I will mention that this deals with license fees and reinstatement fees, increasing it from 25 to 50. So a fiscal note will be required, but it has not yet been determined. Okay, for your information at the bottom, I did link the main criminal code, which if you violate, you'll have your license suspended or revoked for your reference. And a few other statutory reference from the sections. Okay, again, a lot going on, maybe not as much, but a lot going on in this one. I'll stop sharing and take any questions that the department may have, that the committee may have.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions for Rachel? Representative Danny Martin. Can't hear you, Danny. I can't see you either, but I see your hands raised.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. Thank you. As I was saying, or attempting to say, our analyst clearly does her homework on this one. A question to the department regarding the $50 reinstatement fee. Recognizing, of course, that may not be a whole lot of money, but currently, as the bill is written, that would lapse into the general fund. Now, we all know that through executive order or executive action, general funds can be garnished or removed or lessened or otherwise. Reinstating it, including it into a special fund might be more appropriate. And if that's the case, Commissioner, I was just wondering if you have any suggestions as to where we might include that fund?
Thank you, Representative Martin. Yes, the department will be supportive of having that money designated to the landowner relations of the special revenue account, which would be entirely appropriate because many of these violations, of course, occur on private land. So we would be supportive of that.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
That was the representative, that was the amendment Sam brought forward.
Commissioner, in that same vein, do you have any idea how many of these reinstatements there are a year, or maybe?
Yeah, I can ask. I think Bill Swan is probably in the waiting room.
Yeah, I saw him there, so.
Director Swan could answer that.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Swan. Can you hear me? You were muted and we can't see you yet.
About now?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Unfortunately, I think the best person to answer this is probably Dan Scott. I'm going to guess hundreds a year, but I know Dan's on and I think he can get you a better number.
All right, sounds good. Colonel Scott, you're back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
we revoke just under about 200 licenses a year, some for mandatory, some for non-mandatory. The only ones that currently have a reinstatement fee associated with them are out of Title 14, their DHS revocations, where somebody who fails to pay their child support, they notify us and their license is suspended.
So that would be several thousand a year then, I guess, that would go into the coffers. Great. Thank you both. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be much more supportive of this bill, like Representative Danny Martin mentioned, if it did go into a fund for IFW, but not in the general fund. That's where I would like to see this reinstatement fee go. Thank you.
Are there other questions from the committee? Go ahead.
May I have clarification? Would that be the entire reinstatement fee of $50 to go to that fund, or the increase of the fee? So which was 25 on some. So just 25. May I just have clarification on the?
I would think for ease, it would be all of it and all of the reinstatements, but I will refer to Representative Martin, who has his hand up.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my intent.
I agree with that. This is John Martin.
I think it would be just so much simpler to do it that way than to try to start cutting it up. Senator Curry.
What's the current, where does it currently, Senator Dill, thank you.
Yes.
Where does the current fee go to?
Commissioner, I assume, can you answer that?
I would if I could. I think it just goes into our general fund account right now.
That is my assumption also, but.
That was also my understanding.
Yeah, a lot of head nods. Representative Terrio.
Will that cause a fiscal note that might kill this bill?
It will cause a fiscal note. I don't know what that number would be. Certainly the process is, once the fiscal note has been generated, I would bring it back in front of the committee, and the committee can change its mind based on that updated information.
The only reason I'm saying is that if we took the increase and put it into that fund, then that wouldn't cause a fiscal note that would kill the bill. Just a thought.
Representative John Martin.
Yeah, that's the point I was making. I agree with Representative Terrio. And so to start it off, I'd say let's not create a problem. If we don't create one, we can change it down the road. And so I'd say just the increase right now go to the department.
Okay.
So that would be 25 of which would go where it's normally going, which we believe is the general fund, and 25 would go towards the landowner relations other special revenue fund.
Yeah, 10-4.
can I ask again for clarification on that? But there are also some here that are new reinstatement fees, so the entire 50 of that would go to the relations, landowner relation. I see Representative John Martin shaking his head. So is that what you were getting at, Representative John Martin?
Exactly.
All right, thank you. And Representative Terrio's giving me a thumbs up on that too. Are there any other questions? I have a couple. Commissioner, is there already an ethics course available through the department if we wanted to look at that particular aspect that someone suggested?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we do have an ethics course, and I'll ask Colonel Scott to elaborate on it. I know, we certainly require it for anybody who's had their license revoked for hunting or fishing. And Colonel, could you address the suggestion or potential amendment?
Anyone who's had their license suspended, whether it's hunting, fishing, or an ATV,
yes.
automobile or boat violation, are all required to take the ethics course that's currently in place.
So this would be redundant. We don't need this in here.
Yes, it's already present. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The next question that I would have is the stickers and registration, and I don't know if that's a question for the department. There was just some clarification that Rachel was trying to make, that in one place it was saying one thing, in one place it was saying something else. So maybe that's a Rachel question. So we can have a discussion around that to see if it needs to be included.
Yes. So under section 13104, subsection 2, the original is being repealed and the bill is replacing it. And that's the replacement is bringing together language that already existed in statute. I identified that this new application and issuance section, which includes resident and non-resident registrations, I believe, is using the word annual fee in two places where I think that would then preclude the non-resident 310 and seasonal registrations, and I don't believe that's the intent. And then just that the registrations for those non-resident 310 and seasonal registrations are not valid for the full year, but instead have to be have their dates of validity on their registrations. So it would be a matter of removing the word annual in two places and adding the word annual back in a different place. But I will ask the department to just make sure.
And along those same lines, before we go to the department, you also mentioned the aspect of stickers.
Yes. And I'm not, again, I think this might be more about cleaning up the statute. When lower down where it talks about, I want to make sure I'm using that right. The form of registration, it says that form will be determined by the commissioner. Since under application and issuance, it's now outlining what that form is rather than determining it in rule. We could reuse that language under form of registration, which is paragraph of subsection 3.
So Commissioner, could you comment on those? I mean, I think this is, again, just cleaning up language so that, we hopefully have it as clear as possible going in.
Sure, thanks. I'm actually going to ask Bill. I noticed Bill was nodding his head in agreement, but if he could weigh in on those proposed changes.
Sure.
Right. The basics of what Rachel is saying is correct. I think what I'd recommend is that Rachel send us, exactly what she's thinking of, and we can review that here and just make sure of it. But yeah, I think it's fine.
All right. Thank you. The other thing was, and maybe we brought it up in discussion here, but in section 1, paragraph 3, we needed to leave the definition of fine in there because fine is referred to in that section also. Is that correct, Rachel? Is that what you had brought up?
I think that's correct. just to make sure everyone's clear on what the definition of fine is for the purposes of that section. I don't believe the intent was to change the definition of fine in any way.
Again, I'd defer to the department. Is there any problem with leaving that definition in there, which was struck out? So we'd reinstate it?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. And I guess the only other question that I heard Rachel say was when we were talking about folks under the age of 16, we changed the term from resident to person. And since it did refer to trapping there, I think Rachel said she had a suggestion.
I do. Yeah, not muted. So, and again, the department, welcome to correct me if I've misinterpreted this. Non-citizens are restricted in what they can trap based on essentially reciprocity. And if we use the word person instead of resident, person would imply both residents and, or excuse me, citizens and non-citizens. So my suggestion would be just to add a person who is a citizen of the United States. I'm not sure that necessarily, that may not address from other states. So I may have to think a little bit more about how we might address that, or what word other than person might be a better term. And again, if the department feels that I've misinterpreted that, they can certainly let me know.
Rachel, the only thing I would add is Part E of Section 3 may be fixing what you're questioning, where it speaks specifically to a non-resident who is not a citizen of the United States, and that they can basically only trap beaver. That may fix what you're talking about, but again, like Bill Swan said, if you want to pull together what you think is the language, and we'll take a look at it. It is confusing along all the other lines of Title 12.
And it's possible with the addition of the word adult that this may not be an issue. This is a section I would need a little bit more time on just to make sure we're not accidentally including a group of people that is not intended to include.
Sure, and I think the intent of that whole piece, just so the committee knows, is that a citizen of the United States who's under 16 can come here and trap for the same cost as a resident who's under 16.
And just a curiosity, Bill Swan, do we have a lot of non-resident under 16 trappers in the state of Maine that are licensed? Do you know off the top of your head?
We don't have a lot, but there are some. But my guess is that with this there'll be a few more.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I think we're to a point where there seems to be a lot of things that needs to go back to the department. So I think I would request a tabling motion on this bill, and then they can work on the language and bring it back.
Make a motion, we table it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? We can just do this with a show of hands. Okay, thank you. We'll table that till a future one after they've had a chance to work on the language. So I'll close
Senator?
yes.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Me, Scott.
Representative Landry. Okay, I'll close the work session on LD 223, and I will open up the work session on LD 404, an act to preserve deer habitat.
Senator Dill, Judy,
Yes, sir.
Judy wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes.
No apologies. My apologies, Senator. Is it possible, could we get permission to work with Rachel? Can you authorize her to work with us on?
Sure.
Great. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
I think
Thanks, Commissioner Camusa.
that I see the committee is all nodding their head that is fine. So, yep. All right. So we'll open up LD work session LD 404. It's an emergency presented by Representative Johansson, an act to preserve deer habitat. So with that, Rachel, could you also summarize your analysis, please?
Yes. All right, this one's a little shorter. LD 404, an act to preserve deer habitat. This bill is a concept draft pursuant to Joint Rule 208. The emergency bill proposes to direct the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife to submit a deer management plan and a map of deer wintering areas to the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and to work with the committee to develop a plan to protect deer wintering areas. The concept draft is asking the committee to direct the department to work with the many experts and stakeholders to develop a plan to protect the deer herd in Maine. And there is some concern about the impact that timber harvesting is having on wildlife habitat and especially on deer wintering areas. And there were some suggestions for the stakeholder group that's sort of being requested to consider. No opponents. Nate Webb from the department spoke to us neither for nor against, and outlined in his testimony the current efforts to conserve deer wintering areas and the management strategies related to deer wintering areas that are identified in the Big Game Management Plan 2016. And those management strategies fall into three broad categories: habitat management, surveys and assessment, and predation management. This is, of course, a concept draft. If the committee would like to recommend passage of a concept draft, the committee must report out a committee amendment with fully drafted language. The fiscal impact is not yet determined. And I have linked the original bill for your reference. And with that, I'll stop sharing and take any questions if there are any.
Questions for Rachel? Question for the commissioner. Commissioner, didn't we go ahead and aren't you working on a deer management plan and the lottery and all of that anyway? So, and I think we had a presentation on Land for Maine's Future and what's happening with that on deer habitat and preservation, et cetera. Is this correct?
Yes, Senator. I think this bill, the use for this bill might be a little bit different. And I think we would just request if you could hold this bill until later in the session. I know we are trying to craft language with Sportsmen's Alliance in Maine around management potential on state-owned properties.
Chairman.
Are you bringing this back in January? Sorry, who was that? Representative?
That was me. I was just going to move the table.
Do we want to table it, or since I haven't asked for a second, or do we want to carry this over because aren't you reporting back to us in January, or is it this?
I think there's two separate issues.
Okay.
So if we table it, that would be great.
All right. It's been moved to table. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Representative Landry. All in favor? None opposed. All right, we'll table this, and this will come back. And when probably, Commissioner, are we looking back for kind of a report back? Just out of curiosity, or I know you said to hold it a couple of weeks, but just so we know if you out a little bit. Representative Lyford.
Thanks, Senator Dill. Is this wintering deer yard mainly for northern Maine, or is this statewide? Because I'm thinking of a lot of private property owners that do harvest wood and have no idea if there's any deer wintering yards and, south of Orono.
Sure. Representative, thank you. I believe that the discussion we are currently having is around deer wintering areas on properties that are owned by the department or Parks and Lands, not really private. So I think the concept of the bill is trying to come up with some better, I see Representative Johansson's on, but better ways to incentives for the department, or some tools for the department to better manage their wintering areas on our properties, but I don't believe there is language yet. So I think that's what they're working on, is the language. But my understanding is they would like to present this bill and the language in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Johansson, is there something you'd like to say on this about the intent here?
Yes, sir. And thank you. And I apologize for the public hearing when I couldn't get my computer to go through. There's a lot of people with a lot of experience working on this, and I'd yield to them. But my intent was for northern Maine, where the winters are just harder. But if there's a need for it in southern Maine, I'd go along with that too. But my intention was in northern Maine.
All right, thank you. That's good direction, I think, for the department and folks to go forward with. So with that, if there's no other comments, since we've already tabled this bill, we will close the work session on LD 404, and we'll open up the work session on LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters, which is Representative Lightfoot's bill. And again, I will ask Rachel for her analysis.
Okay. All right, LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters. This bill authorizes the baiting of deer by licensed hunters. Testifying in support that takeaways where one can already hunt deer over standing crops or foods that have been left as a result of normal agricultural operations or as a result of natural occurrence. A little bigger so we can all see. Deer baiting is practiced in parts of Canada and other US states, and this could see an economic increase through the ability for landowners to charge fees and attracting hunters to our state who are interested in hunting deer over bait. Opponents brought up the following points. The deer baiting promotes the spread of chronic wasting disease, that it might result in shorter hunting seasons. The state does not need deer baiting to manage deer herds. We can meet management objectives without resorting to this practice. This could possibly disincentivize private landowners and cause conflict between hunters who bait and hunters who do not, and creating inequities in the system. That may cause more harm to the hunting community than the community would get in return. It goes against everything that is good for deer and for hunters. A list of perceived negative impacts, including disease, reduction of native habitat, increased predation, and questions around the ethics of baiting as fair chase hunting, and concerns about regions where deer are not plentiful if this was a statewide statute. No one testified for in the neither for nor against. And I've included Nate Webb submitted in his testimony, mentioned an attached document about a report that was given in January 2020 as a result of prior legislation on the 129th, a report on the application and impacts of white-tailed deer feeding with recommendations for Maine, and I've included the report here. And with that, I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Rachel.
I'll take questions.
Are there questions for Rachel? Representative Alley. You're muted, sir.
How's that?
Much better. I can hear you at least.
Better. Yes, I just curious on the deer baiting, what they would use for deer baiting. It'd be like the salt licks and those things that they buy over here to the lumberyard and stuff, the pellets and stuff they put out there.
I would go and probably I would like to ask Colonel Scott, since I'm sure he runs into these type of things out there on occasion. What type of baits do people use, or do you see that could be used if this bill passed?
So the current prohibition on deer baiting speaks to any food that's known to be attractive to deer, and it also includes salt, mineral licks. Typically we run into some of those commercial mineral licks, as well as apples and cracked corn and whole kernel corn. But the language around the current prohibition on deer baiting speaks to it's prohibited to place any food known to be attractive to deer.
If I may, the bill does refer to the definition of bait having the same meaning as in section 11227, subsection 1, paragraph A, which is bait means an animal or plant or part of an animal or plant used to attract wild animals for the purpose of hunting. And then bait does not include a derivative of an animal or plant in a liquid or paste form, including but not limited to urine or commercially prepared lures or scents, or packaging or container materials that fall within the definition of litter under Title 17.
Representative Lightfoot.
I would respond to Representative Alley's question by saying everything that they're selling in the stores now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Curry.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Request of Ms. Olson, can you put in the chat the link to that report from January 2020? I'm not seeing the link working in my PDF version of your bill analysis. Thank you.
Certainly. Yeah, I just did.
Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator. This is for the Colonel. So you can't place any bait, but you can hunt over a natural bait. Is that true? Like you can plant a crop and you don't have to harvest it, and yet you can hunt over it. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir. The law kind of draws the line that, whether it's naturally there from agricultural purposes or if it's rooted, so to speak. So you can plant a half acre of turnips. You can plant a garden in the woods and you can hunt over it. You can't pull those turnips or pull those vegetables and move them 100 yards away and place them someplace and then hunt over that. You can't even really place them during a certain time of year. Yes, you are correct that naturally growing products or things that are there from the natural agricultural purposes are not considered bait. Things that you place in a certain area or a particular area are.
And you can also put a tree stand in an apple tree and hunt out of an apple tree. Isn't that correct?
Yes, provided that any apples that are there naturally.
Natural, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So you really can bait and hunt over it, but there's winners and losers. It depends on if you own property and you're able to plant a product so that it'll attract a deer. But the people that don't have that ability, so it's quite a misnomer about baiting, because there's a lot of baiting going on that's legally done, but yet it's only legal if you own property. And it's kind of sad that we pick winners and losers in this.
Well, the way the baiting deer statute reads, it's bait if you place it there, or if you're hunting over it and it's not there, due to natural agriculture. So that's how the current law reads. So if you plant it and it grows and it's growing, then it's by definition, it's not bait. And if you place it there and it's known to be attractive to deer, then it would be. Yes, sir.
So it's quite a play on words, basically. I mean, because like I say, if you own property and you want to attract deer and you bait, you plant all kinds of products to attract a deer, but you don't harvest it, that's fine. And that's legal. But like I say, if you own land, but if you don't own any land, you're not privileged enough to have that.
I could make the argument with farmers, with any landowners. If you live in town and you're not a farmer, then you may have less of a place to hunt than somebody else does. But Yes, if you don't own land and you don't have permission to, put a food plot on somebody else or plant crops someplace else, then no, you don't have that ability. You're correct.
Colonel, is there a certain distance away? I mean, like if I owned 100 acres and I know this nice trail that leads from a swamp up through my property, and a half a mile up, I throw a bunch of apples, but I sit down, a quarter of a mile away, just knowing that chances are those deer are going to follow that trail up to a bait pile that's a quarter of a mile away. Is that hunting over a bait pile?
The act that you would have engaged in is placing of the bait. You can't place any food known to be attractive to deer during the deer season. So or you also can't feed deer in the summer months. So if you place that there during the deer season, even if you're not hunting over it, it's a violation. Or if someone else placed it there and then you went and hunted over their bait, that's hunting over bait. There's two different statutes that address that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Senator. I believe Dr. Webb is in the waiting room, and if we could bring him forward.
Sure.
But I would like to just address Representative Terrio's concern, and the difference between a crop or placement of bait is typically bait is placed over and over and over again in the same area, and once a crop is eaten, it is no longer available. So our concern with baiting is, of course, as I remember, we all got the presentation from Dr. Schuler last year on the chronic wasting disease and the spread of disease when you concentrate large numbers of animals into a small area, which baiting in fact does. And whereas on a field or a crop or an orchard, once the animal eats that piece of food is no longer available and is off the landscape and does not cause the same level of crowding as baiting does. But Nate, if you want to address that concern in addition, that would be great.
Sure. No, I think you've covered it very well, Commissioner. I mean, really our concern with baiting primarily relates to the repetitive placement of some sort of item that's attractive and consumed by deer that leads to very concentrated and artificial congregation of those animals in the same location over and over. And that is distinct in our view and from a scientific view and from a disease management perspective. That's distinct from habitat management or seeding that might occur for agricultural purposes or in a food plot or as part of erosion control, which is there's thousands of acres seeded down and seed mixes that are very attractive to deer for erosion control on logging roads and landings and that sort of thing, which are for the most part available for hunting. So in our view, the risk of disease transmission in particular is very different when discussing baiting and placement of a food source as opposed to growing a crop or seeding for erosion control or habitat management.
Thank you. Representative Lightfoot.
Thank you. This bill also required a $5 permit per site. I think the comparison with chronic wasting disease, when you've got 25 or 30 deer in a wintering yard compared to hunting season placing bait where you might see 1, 2, 3 deer coming to that date, you're certainly not going to see 20 or 30 deer come into that bait, I don't believe. So I think there's some correlation there. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Black, would you please introduce yourself, then ask your question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Black, representing the Senate District 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec. And I'm probably in the minority here, but I'm a proponent of baiting. I think that has been discussed so far in the discussion is that, if you own land like I do, I have 600 acres of land. I have fields. I've got 200 apple trees planted. I have multiple stands over food plots. I'm a very fortunate person in the state of Maine that I can hunt over food plots and apple trees and second crop. I can take a field of second crop or third crop and leave it there and have 6 or 8 inches of clover come 1st of November and hunt over it. But if you live in town or where you don't have access to this, you're at a big disadvantage. And I think there's a lot of positive that, you know, I understand the department's dilemma. I understand their position. But there is a lot of positive that goes with this. I would not support widespread baiting across the whole state. I would, if baiting was allowed, I would think it would be completely up to the department. There would be a fee on it. They would only allow it where they thought it was would be all right to do in high population areas where there's high deer killed from cars or high crop damage or expanded archery zones where there was adequate deer. And to me, if we're trying to encourage more youth to hunt, there's no better way. I mean, I've seen youth set in a tree stand for 15 days and not see a deer in the woods, but I've seen them set over a food plot or an apple tree and take their, you know, well, I don't want to shoot a doe, I want to shoot a buck, and they'll let, you know, that one's not big enough, you know, and make good ethical kills and not wound deers because the deer is standing still. They take the pick of the animal they want, and it encourages them. They're willing to come back and hunt the next year. But if a kid sits there for 80 to 200 hours during the season, doesn't see anything but cold feet, they're not apt to come back and hunt. So I think that there is, and I understand the chronic wasting disease, and I think that you could ban grain. I think the department could say, well, we're only going to use naturally grown products from the state of Maine, apples and turnips that are, you know, whatever is grown in the state of Maine, to eliminate that. And as Representative Life had said, when you talk about concentration, there's no greater concentration of deer than down in my swamp down here, where there's 70 deer going up and down a path, and the path is covered with manure, you know, and they're there for 3 months. So to have an apple tree with a few apples out in the middle of an orchard or somewhere, I don't see the concentration of where chronic wasting disease. So I think that if the department would be willing to do some kind of experimental baiting thing to see how it works, I think it would benefit the hunters and youth and everything. So that's my opinion.
Someone from the department want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Commissioner, if you'd prefer to.
I was just going to say the department will do whatever you tell us to do, but we don't support it.
Yeah, and I can maybe address some of your points, Senator Black. I know you and I have discussed this in the past. You know, I would say that for you know, the general public that may not own land or have an opportunity to hunt on land where they can be involved in habitat management and hunting over food plots. You know, there are significant acreages of land in the state, both department lands as well as Bureau of Public Lands, as well as most large landowners in the state, that as part of their routine forestry practices, road construction, erosion control, et cetera, are seeding those areas after use with seed mixes that are very attractive to deer. Those mixes almost universally include either white or red clover or both, which are both some of the most preferred forage species plants for deer. So I think we could easily assist anyone that's interested in hunting in an area with an abundant source of highly preferred forage for deer. Those opportunities do exist really throughout the state as part of regular forest management activities. I would also say that the department does have experience with using bait for deer management, and we have authority now through special hunts that we occasionally make use of to allow the use of bait in very specific circumstances where that is required to help address a localized issue with deer. Typically, those are put in place on control actions. I would refrain from using the word hunt, but from programs we set up in communities to help address locally overabundant deer. And at times, those programs do include the use of bait. So it is a management tool that we do have the authority to use where appropriate now. I would also mention that as part of the report we developed for the committee last year, we did an extensive public survey, general public survey, as well as extensive consultation with stakeholders. And I would say that there was, from the stakeholder group perspective, there was universally no support for changing the laws regarding deer baiting or feeding. I certainly wouldn't say that. There's some members of those groups that may support a change, but the position of all of the groups involved in those conversations was in opposition to any changes to baiting or feeding for deer. The last thing I would mention is with regard to DWAs, you're absolutely correct. In some cases, those do result in the congregation of large numbers of deer. The difference in our view, though, is that those deer, although traveling on paths that do often build up with manure over the course of the winter, they're not foraging on those trails. So in other words, there isn't direct contact between the animal and its foraging activity and that feces, which can be a source of disease transmission. Typically, those animals are browsing on natural forage, hopefully in that environment, and the risk of saliva contamination is much lower than in a concentrated setting where there's saliva from multiple deer and feces from multiple deer all in the same place as where the deer are coming to congregate. So, and there has been research, extensive research on some of those issues that has demonstrated an increased risk of disease transmission at baiting sites and at mineral licks and those sorts of things. Thank you.
Well, if I just have a quick question along those lines, when you just said that, not having been in a deer yard, my concept is that, you know, you've got this area where you've got a lot of deer. They must lay down in those areas, of course, and they must, you know, defecate and urinate in those areas. And deer seem to be fairly good at grooming themselves, because I have a lot hang out in my backyard, and I certainly see them out there, you know, grooming themselves and licking and scratching and doing all sorts of things. So aren't they still getting all of that urine and feces as they groom themselves in a deer wintering area?
There is certainly some nose-to-nose contact among deer naturally in any setting. I would expect that would be greater in a wintering environment where you have more deer concentrated in a smaller area. The way that I would, I guess, encourage the committee to think of that issue is in a natural deer wintering habitat under natural condition, you might have a few dozen deer or even several dozen deer wintering in an area that's several hundred acres in size, and those deer are traveling throughout that area, foraging on whatever food might be available. If you then were to place a bait source in or adjacent to that feeding area, which does happen now legally during the winter when feeding deer is allowed, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of those deer are now coming to the exact same location, literally, you know, a few square feet in many cases, every day, sometimes multiple times a day, all sharing saliva, all being exposed to feces from every deer in that environment. And I think the research shows that the risk of disease transmission is significantly higher in that concentrated situation relative to what would occur when the deer are naturally dispersed and naturally foraging. So in other words, it's not that there's no risk in the absence of bait or feed on the landscape, but the risk does increase dramatically when those food sources are placed and deer are utilizing them.
Thank you. Representative Alley, did you have your hand up?
Nope.
Nope. Next is Representative Mason.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I don't want to go over everything that Senator Black said, but I have had the opportunity, most of these deer in the background here have been shot over bait in Ontario, Canada. I've lugged 100 pounds of grain 3 miles into the woods, and we've spent 14 days in Canada, and you can literally sit there and pick your deer. It's a much cleaner kill. And you can harvest like the biggest animals rather than, you know, here in the state, it almost seems like you have to shoot a spike on because that might be the only deer you're going to see. And I supportive of this bill, but I understand the department's concerns for it, but I think it has its merits, like Senator Black said. Thank you.
Representative Lightfoot.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Nate, what would you think would be more dangerous to the deer herd? The baiting or using, we've talked about these out-of-state scents that are being used, you know?
That's a great question, Representative Lyford. I don't know that we know the answer to that. There is some concern internationally with the potential for urine-based lures to spread chronic wasting disease. My understanding is there is some work underway to try to address that issue and develop some protocols that can minimize that risk. There are a handful of states, Vermont being one of those, that has banned the use and sale of urine-based lures. With regard to feeding and baiting deer, I would say that there is an essentially universal national and even international perspective from Fish and Wildlife, state fish and wildlife agencies, that baiting and feeding of deer is detrimental with regard to the potential for disease spread. And there's many other concerns as well. So although baiting is certainly legal in some jurisdictions, many of those jurisdictions have started to prohibit the use of bait or feeding, often on a local effort by county, when chronic wasting disease first shows up or first appears in those jurisdictions. There aren't really any states that I'm aware of that are liberalizing the use of bait or feeding. So in other words, there is a national effort underway to restrict the use of bait and or feeding for deer, and I would encourage the committee to consider that. And from our perspective, we would be very concerned about liberalizing an activity that we know has significant risks for the long-term future of Maine's deer population, and that research across the country and state fish and wildlife agencies across the country have determined poses a significant risk, and many of those are taking steps to restrict baiting or feeding.
Thank you.
Representative Lightfoot, just a curiosity question for you. If this bill were to go forward, would you be interested in entertaining something like a 3-year trial, and have it start like in 22 and go through 24, and then have it under the control of the department by letting them pick the areas of the state where baiting would be the best, so that we're not going into Washington County and other areas where the deer herd may already be in some type of a problem? So would you be interested in any amendments like that?
I would, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator. Just a little information. I was asked to be on the radio last night on VOM, and someone called in and asked a question about baiting. And when that discussion started, the phone lit up for a half an hour. To say there's no, for Nate to say that most people don't want it, I beg to differ. I can tell you right now, there were some very, very interested people last night that really had a lot to say. And I was listening. I mean, I didn't add a whole lot to it. I only told them what we can and cannot do now. But to say that there's not support for that is a huge misnomer. That's not true.
Mr. Webb, Dr. Webb, you want to comment on that, or?
Yeah, if I could just address that quickly. Certainly there's support for baiting, and I apologize if I implied that there wasn't. However, we did do a scientific public survey. Actually, University of Maine did that survey for us. And the results of that survey did indicate that support for baiting and feeding deer on a statewide basis is low. I can look up the specific percentages. I believe they were in that report that we shared last year, but that certainly doesn't mean, and I hope I didn't imply, that there's no support for it in Maine. There certainly are likely thousands of people that support it in Maine, and many of those are likely going to be vocal given the opportunity to express their support. My comment more specifically was related to the stakeholder groups that we worked with in developing that report for this committee last year. And I'll have to double check, but I believe none of those groups supported legalizing baiting for deer. And again, that was the perspective of the group as at large or as a whole, certainly not reflective of every member of each of those individual groups.
Nate, could you just remind the committee who those stakeholders were?
Sure, I'll actually pull it up here while we're talking, but certainly Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine, the Maine Professional Guides, the Maine Farm Bureau. We had some representation from backcountry hunters and anglers. I believe the Quality Deer Management Association, now the National Deer Alliance, submitted their perspectives. I believe Maine Woodland Owners was part of that group as well. I can certainly take a look at that report and make sure I'm not leaving anyone out, but I believe at a minimum those groups were represented.
Can I follow up, Jim?
Sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Nate. Trust me, we completely understand what you guys are saying and doing, and we support most of everything you do. But there are another faction of these people that are in our state that, you know, feel a lot different. And I believe I'm pretty sure I'm right. There's 42 of the 48 lower 50 states that allow baiting. So there's a whole lot more that do allow it than don't allow it. Isn't that correct?
I would be very surprised if that if there were 42. I believe that report may have included that information on a national level as well, but we can certainly get that information for you as part of the conversation.
Representative Ordway.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, probably not a popular opinion with my colleagues here as I listen, but I'm kind of not a bait kind of guy. But I do like the idea that if this moves forward, this control goes to the department of where, when, how, what, with a sunset that gets reported back. Again, I'm really torn on this bill because I'm not big on bait hunting at all. Thank you.
Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate, this may be a question for you. How many summonses a year do you hand out for people hunting over bait? And may I have a follow-up question after that, please?
Yeah, I think that question would probably best go to Colonel Scott.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sure. In 2020, during this past year, during COVID, we issued just under 100, excuse me, summonses for illegal baiting of deer and about 20 warnings. And in the year prior to that, in 2019, we issued about 110 summonses for baiting deer and 6 warnings. So it typically runs right around 100 or so. And there's always a number of sites that were detected and the hunters weren't encountered in the field. The other concern that we push forward as Warden Service is our landowner relations program. We've heard from a number of landowners and other states that do allow baiting very often express the landowner conflicts that come with it, the increased posted land, because some landowners are absolutely against it. And other places where they do allow baiting, it becomes once if the bait begins to work, which we believe it does sometimes attract deer to an area, it's effective. It would, maybe result in more posted land because becomes my bait pile is bigger than yours. And so it does absolutely increase the number of acres that are posted. Keep in mind that many of what we are very unique here in the state of Maine is open access to private land by the public. Many of those states and other parts of the country that potentially do allow baiting are already so far beyond us in limited access and paying for leases, and the folks that have money are the only ones that can afford to be there. I would make a similar argument that was made earlier about certain people can and do and don't have access to the landscape. If we move into a situation where more and more land gets posted and its value because the deer that are on it, we may run into a situation where there's less available for everyone out there. But yeah, we do encounter about 100 cases a year, Representative Mason.
Okay. What is the average fine, Colonel, for that?
Oh, I think, up until 2020, it was about $250 and it was a criminal offense. I believe it was last year where this committee made it a civil violation to engage in deer baiting, and the minimum fine was $500.
Okay. Suspension of license?
Yes, sir. Last year, it's run the gamut over the last 5 years for a while. Second offense baiting became a lifetime suspension. Then the committee corrected that and a few years ago, and now it's a 1-year suspension.
Thank you, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
Senator Black.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I thought that, like Representative Terrio said, that there was the vast majority of the lower 48 were baiting. I thought it was 38 or 42 or somewhere in that area. And my question is how are they in those states, like Texas? I mean, how are they limiting the spread of chronic wasting disease? And I know, that's the patent's one of the biggest fears, and it should be a fear of all of us. And I wouldn't want to contribute to that. But I guess if the spread from baiting is so bad, I mean, a lot of those states, they'll have a tripod there, and they, the deer are coming all day long, off and on all day. So how do they, in those states, with those baiting stations, not just bait, control the spread of chronic wasting disease? I don't know who could answer that for me. Maybe Nate.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. Thank you, Senator Black. So I'm just looking up some numbers here and getting some information from our deer biologists kind of as we talk. So fewer than half of the states do allow deer baiting currently. Many of those that do allow it, it's only in a portion of the state, so it's not allowed on a statewide basis. And as I mentioned earlier, there are many of those states are starting to or have already restricted the use of bait for deer hunting because of chronic wasting disease. Your question to Senator Black about how do those states that allow baiting manage chronic wasting disease how do they deal with that? I would say with difficulty. Chronic wasting disease has spread dramatically across North America, both in the US and in Canada over the past 20 years primarily. We're very fortunate here in the Northeast that it currently doesn't exist north of Pennsylvania. But I would say that those states that have not been able to restrict the use of bait for deer hunting purposes are experiencing more challenges in managing that disease than states that that manage or prohibit that activity.
Representative Landry.
Yes, for Nate. Thank you, Senator. How close is CWD to us? I'd heard it was in Canada and New York.
Yeah, so currently in the wild, it is in Pennsylvania. It was detected in New York a few years ago. They implemented a significant control effort and management effort after that positive detection, and they believe that they have eradicated it, which if true would be, I believe, the only state that has done so once it has been detected in the wild. So in the US, my understanding, unless something has changed very recently, is that the closest state is Pennsylvania. It was detected on a captive deer facility, a red deer facility in Quebec about 2 years ago. They also did an extensive control and monitoring effort, and they believe that it was restricted to that one captive facility and did not make the leap into wild deer. So that's the current situation with regard to proximity of the disease, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you.
Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great discussion. Earlier in the opening remarks, Senator Black mentioned that he may be in the minority, then made some compelling arguments on the bill, a lot of which is not currently worded in the original bill. I may be in the minority, but I can't support this based on, as it's currently written, based on the testimony on the department's position. This is not the first time that this issue has been before us, and the department, the professionals, the biologists, the scientists have always opposed moving in this direction. So I may be in the minority, but I will not be supporting this piece of legislation. And I say that with all due respect to my colleague and sponsor of this particular bill.
Are there other questions, comments?
Yeah, I guess I do have one comment
Sure.
or a couple of comments. As some of you know, I do own a sporting camp operation, and it's interesting the number of guests who come in who want to go bait and sit on the bait. And I argue with them. I don't allow it. It's against the law. And it's the only way that I can stop them when I say it's against the law. And if we say, okay, fine, let's whatever, I think we're creating a problem that we're going to be sorry that we've started it.
Are there other questions, comments? I will entertain a motion. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion, Senator. Oh, I can't.
Yeah, that's why I was going, it's your bill, so. Does anybody else want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. That we table this for the time being and then come back to it.
Is there a second to the tabling motion? All right, seeing none, it fails for lack of a second. Thank you, Representative Alley. Anyone else want to make any type of a motion? Representative Ordway.
I'll blink. I'm going to, with all due respect to my colleagues, I'm going to make a motion of ought not to pass.
Is there a second? Representative Danny Martin. It's been moved and seconded, ought not to pass. Any further discussion? All right, Linda, would you call the roll, please?
I will. Representative Lyford.
No.
Representative Mason.
No.
Representative Hepler.
Yes.
Senator Curry.
Yes.
Senator Black.
No.
Senator Dill.
No.
Representative Landry.
Yes.
Representative Terrio.
No.
Representative Danny Martin.
Yes.
Representative Ordway.
Oh, boy. The dog ate my homework. Yes.
Representative Alley.
Yes.
Representative Nadeau.
Yes.
And Representative John Martin.
Yes.
So we have 8 in favor of the motion ought not to pass and 5 against.
Okay, so the bill ought not to pass on LD 445, and that will be the end of our work session.
Oh,
On this work session, anyway. Yes.
sorry. I would like to ask those who voted against the motion what they would like their minority report to be.
Well, there may be several minority reports.
Yes.
But my minority report would be that it would, I would amend it to have complete control of the bill under the control of the department with a 3-year experimental season, starting in 22 through 24. That would be it.
I'd second that.
So that's 2 that would go that way, 3 that would go that way.
I go that way.
I would go that way.
Go
All
that
right.
way.
So it's ought to pass as amended.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. I'm assuming that you'd authorize the department to promulgate whatever rules necessary to implement it.
Right, exactly. When I should have been a little more clear when I said controlled by the department, but yes, any rules that they would need to do, certain areas or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm sorry, if those who support that ought to pass as amended, it got a little jumbled on the screen. So I didn't see those that would like to also go with that report.
I think that, yeah, all 5, I think that
okay,
went that way.
Thank you. The drawbacks of technology there got lost a little bit. Sorry about that.
No problem. Representative Ordway.
Yeah, I guess I might have jumped the gun because, and I don't know what to do about it now, because I would support that. I guess, I don't know, I'd have to get, I don't know, have to bring it back or something, but I could support that motion. I just didn't see it on the table when I made my motion.
Well, what we could do, we could vote to reconsider and turn right around and vote right now. You could ask to vote to reconsider. Or you were on the ought not to pass, so you were on the majority, so it has to be someone from the majority side, which would be you. So if you would like to vote to reconsider that or move to reconsider, we can do that.
I would like to move to reconsider.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to reconsider. Let's call the roll on this one. No, I think we can do it by hand. It's usually a common courtesy to reconsider a vote, so. All right, so it's reconsidered. So is Commissioner Camuso? You want to make a comment?
No, if possible, could I just request that we could hear from the representatives of the supporting organizations, perhaps Don Kleiner and Dave Trahan, and get their perspective on these?
Sure, before we move forward, I will allow that since it's. Who was out there? We had.
They're on their way in, both of them.
Okay. Good morning. Since I see you sitting down, Don Kleiner, before I go to you, whoops, I saw a hand up, but it's now down. Would you comment on this bill as far as your association?
Certainly, Senator. Don Kleiner, Executive Director of the Maine Professional Guides Association. And again, a strong reminder that you're dealing with a statewide resource here, and any blanket application of this would be detrimental in a huge geographic swath of the state. I'm pleased to hear the amended language that sort of works, but I'm not sure this is a step we want to take in light of how important the deer resource is, not only to the people of the state, but to the economy of certain rural areas. And I just would urge extreme caution here, no matter what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trahan.
Yes, thank you, Senator Dill, members of the committee. I appreciate the commissioner offering an opportunity for us to weigh in. I didn't text her, I didn't ask her to do that, but I do appreciate it. Thank you, Judy. I should say, Madam Commissioner. I've been watching this public hearing, having served on that committee for a dozen years, also as SAM director for another 10. And I can tell you that I'm very sorry to see the committee going in this direction, not because I don't want hunters to have an opportunity, a new opportunity, but we look at the resource in a statewide way. It's one reason why we're working on the deer yard bill to try to bring the deer back in certain parts of the state where it's declined to almost non-existent. This policy appears to fly in the face of our efforts to try to manage and bring the deer back in certain parts of the state. We are adamantly opposed to this policy. Our committee was, in our membership, voted 80% against this policy. We don't think it works, and we hope that the committee does not go down this road.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for you, these two? All right. We've just been asked to reconsider our vote on this bill. The motion was not to pass. Since we're reconsidering that vote, that's the motion that would be on the floor. So would you call the roll, please?
So the motion it remains not to pass?
Yes.
Okay,
Because we're just reconsidering our vote.
gotcha. Okay.
Representative, excuse me, before we do, Representative Ordway has a question.
Yeah, with the amendment, I would like to hear from the commissioner on her thoughts on that amendment. Is that something that the department could work with in a limited use? Yeah, I'd like to go to the experts on this one.
Sure.
I'll ask Dr. Webb to join again, but the department currently has the authority and we exercise that very judiciously on a couple of the smaller islands of the only areas where we feel that that is appropriate. But I can certainly ask Dr. Webb to provide more insight.
Certainly. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Representative Ordway, you were asking how we might go about implementing this practice if the amended version were to move forward. Yeah, to be honest, we would have to look pretty closely at it. I'm not sure I could answer that at this point. Again, we have significant concerns over this activity. However, if the committee, would like us to proceed, we would certainly do so as best we could in a manner that would minimize risks to the deer resource, which is our primary concern. But beyond that, I think we'd have to look at various options for achieving that, Commissioner.
And if I could just add, I don't know administratively how the department would manage this. So if we did it through rule by Wildlife Management District, I guess we certainly don't want to be tasked with managing every bait site permit application, even in a WMD. That would be a burden that our department could not take on at this time.
I would also, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I hear maybe a rather large fiscal note from your standpoint if this did go forward, just to be able to try to manage all the sites at $5 a site. I mean, it would,
right. Oh, for sure. It would be, the $5 doesn't cover the even.
I realize cover the cost of administering the permit. Okay.
No, right. And there would be a lot of things that would have to be worked out. Do you have to have written permission to put the bait site? Do you have to own the land to put the bait? Do you have to have, there's all kinds of follow-up that we would have to figure out on how that would be administered. So I think we would probably want to talk internally as to how we would do it, whether it be that we just, if the committee voted this way, that we would allow baiting in certain WMDs, and but I'm not quite sure how, otherwise, I don't know how we could manage, we have close to 220,000 deer hunters, and I imagine a significant number of people. What's happened in New Hampshire when they allow baiting is people who didn't bait in the past now discovered that their neighbor was baiting, and that the deer that have been in their backyard were now going to the neighbor. So then now they're baiting as well. So the amount of bait on the landscape increases significantly when it's legalized in a given area. So we absolutely could not have to track the individual permits.
Nate, do you want to comment on this too?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Senator Dill. I just want to make one comment, and we did make it in our testimony as well. But it's clear that one of the stated goals for legalizing baiting is to increase hunter success, and I heard it mentioned also specifically regarding increasing the success for mature bucks, and that is something through rulemaking. If we were to implement this, we would have to look at. And so, in other words, if legalizing baiting in a portion of the state were to increase hunter success rates, we would have to look at our other deer hunting parameters, season dates, bag limits, number of any deer permits, et cetera, in order to ensure that it wasn't resulting in an unsustainable harvest at the population level, or resulting in a harvest of mature bucks at a level that was reducing the age structure of Maine's deer population below what the hunting community wants. So I do want to make the committee aware of that there is the potential that if this were to become legal, we would have to look at other aspects of the deer hunting season framework and ensure that hunting remains sustainable moving forward. And that would likely mean restrictions relative to the current framework that is in place now. But we would have to look at that as part of the rulemaking effort.
Thank you. Representative Martin, Danny.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Ordway, who is now a part-time constituent since he owns property in my area, indicated and mentioned and requested and suggested that he wanted to hear from the experts. Well, the experts, without exception, are opposed to this piece of legislation.
Representative Ordway.
Well, who am I to argue with Representative Martin? But I thank you, Dr. Webb and Commissioner Caruso. That was helpful information to me. I guess I'm going to stick with my original vote of ought not to pass, but that was very helpful. Thank you.
Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I listened to the debate and even some of the comments myself that I've made, I just think that this has got too complicated, too difficult to manage at this point. So I probably will change my vote on the next round because even though I'm a proponent of baiting, it just seems so there isn't enough willingness to move forward and try this, and it just seems very difficult to do. I brought it forth, I'm a proponent of it because it's one of the top three things I hear when I talk to my constituents. The three things I hear from my sportsmen is they want us hunt on Sunday, they want 70-year-olds to be able to get a doe permit, and they want to be able to bait deer. That's what I hear from my constituents. So trying to be a good senator, I have been kind of in support of this. It doesn't affect me. I have food plots, I have apple trees, I have 600 acres of land I can hunt on. Not going to affect me one iota. But I think it's an injustice of some of these people that aren't as fortunate as I am. But I will be changing my vote on this next go around.
As unusual as it is, I will agree with Senator Black on this one. So, Commissioner.
Thank you, Senator. I would just like to ask if possible for Colonel Scott to address the committee referencing complaints.
Sure.
Sure.
Yep.
Where some of the discussion was around, maybe doing this in localized areas where there's higher deer population and what impact it would have on the department. We currently do spend, a considerable amount of time managing conflict between both hunters and non-hunters and hunters and other hunters around baiting, whether it be bear baiting, and more so, you don't have to look very far, especially around winter feeding, where when you're attracting a deer to a particular area on purpose, so to speak, say a bait pile, we do get an awful lot of collateral damage to neighbors who are trying to grow shrubs and grow gardens and so forth. And so if in some of these areas where folks are alluding, we could potentially use it, where there's higher deer populations, maybe in and around the expanded archery zones. For everyone who doesn't like the deer down there and wants to hunt them, there are landowners and neighbors in very close proximity that like to watch the deer and don't want to see the increased activity. And at the same time, many experience damage to their ornamentals and their gardens and so forth. So as far as do we see conflict occurring, I think it would occur both between hunters and non-hunters and hunters on opposite bait piles. I saw one place in the bill, I don't have it right in front of me right now, I believe it spoke to not being allowed to hunt over somebody else's bait as well. And we see some conflict coming from that. Any place where there's open access to the public to go out and put your bait out, at what point then do you essentially reserve an area on the landscape where nobody else can hunt? So I do think that passing this will create some conflict for our staff to sort through as well. Thank you.
Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator. And I agree with Senator Black, which is really, really hard for me to say. But, I support the department 100%, and I know that it would be difficult, but one of my major complaints that I have about going forward is baiting deer, and I'm supposed to represent my constituents, and I have had zero call me and say, please don't bait deer. So although I appreciate what everybody's saying and they're doing, and not that I don't agree, my job is to represent my constituents, and Senator Black wants to bail on his constituents, that's up to him, but I'm going to stick with my vote.
Are there other questions or further discussion? If not, would you please call, whoops, hold it, our Representative Mason.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I too, along with Representative Terrio, that's sitting on the IFW committee, that's the one thing I hear about from my constituents and fellow hunters is baiting deer and Sunday hunting. And I will have to stick with my original vote. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Linda, would you call the roll, please?
I will. Again, for ought not to pass as the motion. Representative Blyford,
No.
Representative Mason,
No.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Senator Curry,
Yes.
Senator Black,
Yes.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Terrio,
No.
Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
Representative Ordway,
Yes.
Representative Alley,
No.
Representative Nadeau,
Yes.
and Representative John Martin.
Yes.
And that gives us 9 ought not to pass and 4 against.
Thank you. On LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters, ought not to pass 9-4. And with that, I will close the work session on LD 445. And I hope the next two are quite fast, and they're all yours, Representative Landry.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Dill. It's great to watch democracy in progress. We will now open the hearing on LD 88, an act to amend Maine's wildlife laws regarding species of special concerns, brought to us by Representative Ordway of Standish and Sinclair now. This bill has been tabled, so I will need a motion to bring it off the table.
So moved.
Moved by Representative Ordway, second.
Second.
Second by Representative Terrio. Thank you. Rachel, what do you have for us on this one?
Hey, so last time the committee considered this bill, we identified a couple of concerns regarding the definition of species of special concern. To kind of put it all together, the department was really trying to thread a needle with this definition. They want to make sure that they can do exactly what they've already been doing regarding species of special concern. And they had heard from stakeholders a desire to make sure that in putting this definition into statute, that the department wasn't seeking to expand its regulatory power. So what I have in front of you on your screens represents the work that I did with the department. And according to the department, this language satisfies their stakeholder concerns. And I'm happy to let the department speak about that process as well. But what we have in front of you represent the changes the amendment offered. So we're striking the definition of species of special concern that was put forward and replacing it instead with less subjective language and language that refers to rulemaking. So species of special concern means a species of fish or wildlife that is not an endangered species or a threatened species, but meets criteria for being a special concern as established by the commissioner by rule under section 10105, subsection 19. And in section 2, we are adding that, section 2 of the amendment, we're adding the section 10105, subsection 19, is enacted to read, the commissioner by rule shall establish criteria for determining when a species of fish or wildlife that is not an endangered species or a threatened species is of special concern. The rules may include different criteria for categories of species of special concern, including a category for species that are rare. The rules must list the species that meet the criteria established in rule. The commissioner shall use the list in administering section 12152 and may also use the list in administering any other laws or programs or when providing advisory recommendations to other entities or agencies on fish and wildlife matters in accordance with applicable laws or rules. And the rules adopted are routine technical. So in regards here to this mention of a subcategory or identifying species that are rare, rare is a term that's used in some regulatory circles around permitting. And so, and this is work, again, that the department has already been doing these things. So really referring to work that is already done in terminology that's already used, but has been identified through rulemaking within various agencies and not in statute. And then this reference here, section 12152, refers to the permit for the collection of reptile, amphibians, or invertebrate, as I believe relates to research. So those were the big changes, and then the smaller change that didn't really require a lot of conversation is down here regarding the process for identifying species that are threatened or endangered. The commissioner may make a recommendation to the legislature, and in coming up with those recommendations, they have to hold public hearing. And we want to make clear that it's mandatory to hold one, but more than one could be held, and the language "at least one" has been added to make that clear that you only have to hold one, but you could hold more than one if the situation requires it or warrants it. I can take questions. I can stop screen sharing. I did send this out as an email to committee members. There wasn't a place to put this in an electronic LD file, so you should have received it as an email.
Yeah.
Happy to take questions. And again, I worked with the department, and they worked with various stakeholders to help develop this language.
Chairman,
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, Representative Martin.
I move on to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Representative Hepler seconded it.
Right.
No discussion. Linda, would you call the roll?
I will. Representative Lyford,
Yes.
Representative Mason,
Yes.
Representative Hapler,
Yes.
Senator Curry,
Yes.
Senator Black,
Yes.
Senator Dill. You're muted, sir.
Yes.
Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Terrio,
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
Representative Ordway,
Yes.
Representative Ali,
Yes.
Representative Nedu,
Yes.
and Representative John Martin.
Yes.
That's unanimous. 13 ought to pass as amended.
Thank you, Linda. I will now close the work session on LD 88. And that was passed unanimously 13-0. The next bill we have ahead of us is LD 280. I'll bring this up again. There's a motion, I believe, or I'm looking for a motion to reconsider this bill. Representative Terrio.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion, we reconsider this bill.
Is there a second? Do we
I
need a
second
second?
it.
Okay, yeah, second by Representative Alley. Representative Lyford.
Could we read the bill, please?
Rachel?
You need to vote on the reconsideration first. You have a motion on the
okay.
floor.
Okay, can we do that with a show of hands, or do we need a voice vote? Show of hands to reconsider. It looks unanimous. Thank you. Rachel?
Yes, I'm going to share it on the screen.
Mhm.
So this is the original bill that was put forth. The committee had directed me to go away and come back with an amendment after gaining some fiscal and economic information from the department. I don't have that prepared for today, but this is the original bill as put forth. Yeah. Except as provided, this increases the fees for snowmobile registration for both resident and non-residents. So for residents, it would increase the fee from $45 to $55, and the registration for a snowmobile owned by a resident is valid for 1 year, commencing on July 1st of each year. For non-residents, for the 3 consecutive day registration, it increases from $49 to $69. For the seasonal registration, from $99 to $119. And for the 10 consecutive day registration, it increases from $75 to $95. $5 of that increase So for now, a total of $10 from each registration fee collected would be transferred to a special fund administered by the Off-Road Vehicle Division of the Bureau of Parks and Lands within the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. And those funds must be used to assist any entity that has a snowmobile trail grooming contract with the Bureau of Parks and Lands in the purchase of trail grooming equipment. And the funds may also be used for the repair or overhaul of trail grooming equipment. And then from the non-resident increases, it would go from $12 to $17 for, excuse me, my mistake, sorry. It would go from $12 to $17 for each resident snowmobile registration fee, would go to the Snowmobile Trail Fund. And for non-residents, it goes from $6 to $21 for the 3 and 10 day, and $11 to $26 for the non-resident seasonal snowmobile to go to the Snowmobile Trail Fund. I should have had my bill analysis open. That might have made that a little easier for me. I'll leave it up if you'd like me to, or I can take it down.
Representative Terrio, did you have your hand up? You're
Yes,
muted.
I do. I want to remove my amendment. Make a motion to remove my amendment. Go back to the original bill.
Yes. Did the original bill contain $5 for the department, or was that part of the amendment?
No, the original bill was what you just read, and that's what I want to go back to.
Okay.
Correct. The amendment included the $5 to the department, not the original bill.
Okay, so you want to go back to the original with nothing going to the department?
That's correct.
Correct. Representative Danny Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we need to, since there's a reconsideration motion before us, my understanding is, are we now postured back in debating the original bill? Is that correct? Or do we have to vote on any further motions here?
Senator Dill?
What you have on the floor is we voted to reconsider the bill, and the bill was as amended. We are now in a posture of discussing that bill, and the motion is as amended. That doesn't mean that before we're done with this, the amendment can't come off in it. And I would defer to John Martin over there, who's our parliamentarian, but that would be the way that I would see this posture.
Representative Martin?
Representative Terrio wishes to get rid of what he proposed. We move reconsider and vote with him or whatever, and then he could withdraw the amendment.
Right.
So I would move to reconsider, whereby we did that.
Right. You've already reconsidered.
Yeah.
Okay, but we need to reconsider.
Right.
We need to reconsider the amendment that Representative Terrio put on.
Right.
So that's the motion which I would now make.
Okay.
And I would second that.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
I will second that, since
Okay.
Representative
See a lot
Terrio
of hands up. So we're going to vote on by hand?
Right.
Can I?
Representative Hepler?
So I'm confused about what we're voting on. Are we voting on ought to pass as amended? And so if we don't.
No.
No.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Representative Martin.
Thank you. I think what we want to do, and I think what the intent is to get ourselves into a position where we're now discussing and debating the original bill.
Right.
Agreed by Representative Terrio.
Right.
Any discussion on the regular bill? Representative Leifer?
Consideration. Or the motion to reconsider.
Yeah.
Didn't.
and And
we
we
vote on
voted
it
on
already?
that by show of hands, so we're back to the original
Yeah.
posture.
Right.
Right.
Now,
We
Mr.
did vote on
Chairman,
that.
Representative Terrio can now simply withdraw his amendment.
Representative Terrio?
Yeah, I make a motion to withdraw my amendment.
You
Is
don't
there-
actually, you don't actually have to move that. You can just withdraw it because we're back into that posture.
And now we're back to the original bill.
Correct.
Back to the original bill.
Mr.
An act
Chair.
to increase funding. Yes, Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The original bill is what Rachel just showed us on the chart. My question to Rachel would be, if I'm allowed to, would be, Rachel, did you get my email yesterday where I sent you a schematic and the latest and greatest position of the Maine Snowmobile Association regarding my bill?
If I could ask, was that a picture of notes written on a piece of paper?
It was.
Okay, then yes, I apologize. It came with no identifier and kind of looked like spam, but I do have it. Yes,
Could you bring that up to the screen?
I can.
Thank you.
One moment. Is this what you meant?
Yes. If
Okay,
I may,
great.
if I may proceed, Mr. Chair. As you can well imagine, after we voted on this here, both Representative Terrio and myself received considerable phone calls and emails from the Maine Snowmobile Association. And as of about 3 days ago, the Maine Snowmobile Association Steering Committee met and voted on what you see before you. And for the record, they're saying that they would agree to an increase for resident fees of $55, $5 of which would go to the trail fund and $5 would go to the grant groomer fund, and zip for IFW. And 3-day non-union, 74, 10, 10, and 5 to IFW. 10-day non-residents, 99, 10 and 10, 5 to IFW. And in lieu of the proposed amendment, which was, I believe, $199 for seasonal non-residents, they would agree to $119, of which $10 would go to the trail fund, 10 would go to the grooming fund, the grant fund, and zip to IFW. I'm not sure what Representative Terrio's position on that, but I could go along with something like this here, with one exception. It's really important that we allot at least something to IFW for both the resident funds and the seasonal non-resident funds. IFW, as you well know, administers these fees, and I think it's important that we since we are the IFW committee, that we consider some contribution to them here. The Maine Snowmobile Association made it very clear that were we not to reconsider this, of which we did, that they had asked me to pull the bill, or that they wanted the bill pulled. Well, it's my piece of legislation, and I made it very clear to them that I would not pull the bill, but I would concur to reconsider or consider what their position is based on the chart that you see before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Martin.
I have a question for Danny. It's John Martin. Did they indicate that they were willing to support at that point the bill with the fees that they just suggested to you?
What they're willing to support, Representative Martin, is what you see on the chart before you. But my comment to you that I just mentioned previously here is rather than having a zero amount to IFW for the resident $55 fee. And rather than having $0 to IFW for the $119 seasonal non-resident fee, I would suggest that we put an amount in there here. As to whether or not they would agree to that, it's my understanding that a Mr. Mike Grass from the Maine Snowmobile Association might be listening. If they are, we might want to pose that question to them.
Is he here, Linda?
He is, and I'm bringing him in. He's now unmuted.
Mr. Grass?
Yes.
Welcome. And you, I guess we can hear you. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Mike Grass. I'm the president of the Maine Snowmobile Association.
Thank you. Did you hear the conversation?
I did, and I would ask if Joe Higgins is also on, if he could come on, because I believe built into the registration process, there is a percentage that goes to IFW. So as the registration fees increase, that percentage goes up. But I think Joe could answer that question better.
I also
Okay.
I also have information related to that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Higgins, would you introduce yourself? Unmute yourself.
Whoops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, my name is Joe Higgins. I am the supervisor for the snowmobile program here at Bureau of Parks and Lands.
And were there questions, or did you want to speak to the rates?
What is the question?
Did you see the schedule proposed by the Maine Snowmobile Association?
I did. And I think Rachel did speak up. She's got some information on that. I think was the question that there is some funding already built into the registration dollars that goes to inland fisheries and wildlife?
Yes.
Okay. Could I ask Rachel to give that information? That I think she probably got that probably from inland fisheries and wildlife.
I actually got it out of current statute.
Okay, thank you.
So if you look at the current bill and the proposed bill as well as current statute, you'll notice that the dollars pulled out for the two funds, the capital equipment and the snowmobile trail fund, don't total the total amount. So there's money sort of left over, and that is dealt with in section 10206, where funds from each of these different types of registrations are distributed by a percentage to different groups. If looking at just the resident fees, the leftover amount, which is I think around 62% of the dollars, is further divided out. So 22% of that leftover would go to the general fund as undedicated revenue. 52% of that leftover goes to the snowmobile trail fund, and 26% is set aside for the municipality or the unorganized territory, depending on where it's registered. For non-resident fees, the breakdown of what's left over, about 18% goes to the general fund as undedicated revenue. About 75% goes to the snowmobile trail, and 7% goes to enforcement in IFW. But again, that the enforcement portion of the fees only comes out of the non-resident sections.
Thank you. Representative Neto? You're muted.
I want to thank everyone. I'm the new legislator here, and I'm really disappointed that Tim pulled his amendment, because I think we are doing a disservice for the snowmobilers. One is the money is coming from the out-of-staters. In New Hampshire, you pay $149, period. You don't get a 3-day or a 10-day. You pay $149. And what was not thought of is the safety factor that we're missing out on. This money could have been used to help put up better signage. My husband went to Canada and he came back and he was all excited because of the way they handle their trails. Their trails, their sign, they're groomed, the safety factor. I blew past an intersection. There was absolutely no stop sign. I could have been killed this weekend. There was a woman that went through a stop sign, I think a couple of years ago. And when I say we have stop signs on the trails, they're tiny signs. It's not a big stop sign. So, you know, safety, I think, is really, really important, and we're missing that. Groomed trails are a safety factor. You know, when you're coming around a corner and the trails are all bumpy, you can't normally handle the trail as you would if you would, you know, tap your brake, accelerate, hit the corner just right. But if it's all ungroomed, what do? You miss the corner, you go into the other side, and I'm really disappointed, because I think that there's a lot of smaller clubs that really could use the help. I snowmobile up in Eustis. We have one of the largest clubs. We don't have that problem. We have the big groomers, and the trails are, you know, they're always nice. So I'm just really disappointed that we can't tap into that, the funds from the out-of-staters. They come in, they use our trails, and they're not paying what we would have to do if we went over to New Hampshire. So I just think that if only we could maybe reconsider. I think those fees are just so astronomically low for out-of-staters that, you know, they don't come in and help with the trails very, very rarely, very rarely. And so I just hope that we can just take a look at those fees again, because I don't think it's enough. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. I was a little disappointed too, but I feel the Maine Snowmobile Association is the closest to this situation than any of us. Therefore, you know, I will go along with what they want. I think it's well put together. I think that what Representative Danny Martin brought out is very important. I think now the non-resident amount of money has been settled so that he sees IFW is getting a little on the non-resident 7%. So what we need to do is work on the main resident to get some money for IFW. And I would say that, remember, the Canadian government finances the Canadian trails tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
Yeah, I had a couple of issues, and I'll speak not only as a member of this committee, but a member of Maine Snowmobile Association and 2 local clubs. And the things I hear in these clubs when I go to a meeting, it's 2 things, and it's funding and volunteers. So we have very few a huge, huge issue of not enough volunteers. So how do we incentivize the volunteers, the people to get out there so that they can make a trail, so that they can maintain these trails for these out-of-staters to come in? Now, I think 199 is a big number, but I don't see 119 as being enough. Then they're strictly users. They don't put back in with the locals, and I know that Maine Snowmobile Association has opposed the increase, but I would like to know if I could, Mr. Chair, ask the association, Mr. Grass, what their exact reasoning is for opposing that fee, that increase.
Mr. Grass?
Yes, we have multiple clubs that are on the western side of the state that have out-of-state residents that own land in the state of Maine. They have sleds that they keep here that they can't register as residents. They pay taxes here, and many of them have trail on their land, and they're already paying all of those fees. And we've heard unanimously that if we raise it to double what they're getting now, they won't come. And most people have said that will kill the sport. And 25% of the registrations in general is non-resident. So they pay more already, and they make up a huge chunk of what goes into that pot, so to speak, already. And for us to just double their rate in 1 year, the MSA felt that was way too much. We're trying to do it in increments. We may be behind on our rate. We understand that, but we don't feel we can raise it that far in 1 year.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And I'll use this example. I belong to a club in Western Maine that almost borders on, I guess we grown trails up to the New Hampshire border. And I'll give you a situation that we have over there. A rental company in New Hampshire with 200 rentals, and they guide. I'm sure they don't have a guide license either, but they're coming out of New Hampshire, using our trails, wrecking the trails, and contribute barely anything. We need some control. We need them to step up and give us some support. I mean, I tell you that your local clubs, and it might be a few that are on that western border, they're all clamoring for funding.
I understand that, but they're also clamoring that they do not want this to double in 1 year. We've had club presidents come on our e-board meeting with just this scenario, and we've got 50 years of snowmobiling. We go to meetings all over the state. We're not just in Augusta. We've surveyed our membership. We get out to these clubs and have meetings and talk to these people, and this is what they're willing to accept, not what was proposed. That's why we brought forth what we did.
Representative Mason, did you have a question for Mr. Grass?
Yes, sir. I just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I used to be an avid snowmobiler, probably 18, 19 years ago. I got out of it because I had a family and I felt like I was going to get killed on the trails because of safety issues. They narrowed right down coming up over a rise, and I just felt like it wasn't a good thing for me to do it at the time. Well, I've got a friend who has a camp in the county, and he's been after me last year and this year to go up there snowmobiling with him. And because of this bill, we went up. We went up for the weekend, and he had a snowmobile, and I went for a ride. And I must say, and nothing against the clubs. The clubs are doing everything they can. I know they are. But I'm telling you, 18, I really haven't seen much difference in the trails from 18, 19 years ago till now. And I just feel that this increase that we have in front of us right now is not enough. I feel like I said, I only spent a couple days up there, but I think they could be a lot better, and nothing taken away from the snowmobile clubs. But I think it needs to be more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Representative John Martin.
Yeah, no problem. I obviously, President Mason probably went to the wrong part of the county.
I was near you, sir.
But the trails are being maintained. There's absolutely no question about it, with volunteers. But let me put it this way. From time to time, I get political, but let me put it this way. If we don't have the support of the Maine Snowmobile Association, this bill is going to go nowhere. So my suggestion is that we're willing to go where they are going now. I'd support that, and give it a chance in 2 years, come back and take a look at it. So I really would suggest that, as a matter of fact, I will move that we accept their recommendation and amend the bill with their recommendation.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin?
You actually, John Martin actually moved that, so but hold it, I'm not sure, there may have already been a motion on the floor, because I believe that Tim Terrio, did you move? No,
No.
okay. But you
No.
did move, you did move that.
I'll second
Right.
John Martin.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Now you can move.
Okay, Representative Danny Martin?
Motion was made and it was seconded. Have we, right, well, discussion, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm assuming Mr. Grass is still on the board.
Yes.
Would the Maine Snowmobile Association consider adding at least $5 where the $55 resident fee is listed on the chart?
Did you hear that, Mr.
I'll go
Grass?
over that. I did. It's hard for me to say that without a vote of the membership. As you know, the committee can change it if they want to. And I would say that would still be okay with MSA. I can't say that 100% because we can't vote on it right here in the next few minutes. But if you feel that that's needed for IFW, I believe that the Snowmobilers of Maine would be okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to amend my motion and to add the $5.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification.
Yes, Mr. Martin. Senator Martin. Representative Martin.
If Representative Martin from Eagle Lake's motion would be to add $5, so in effect, we would increase the $55 resident fee to what, $60? Because we have to find an additional $5 there, or how do you suggest we do this?
Yeah, Mr. Grass?
I would ask that it was in addition to.
Senator Camuso, excuse me, you just got a new job. Commissioner Camuso.
Oh, thank you. I like that title, Senator. Thank you so much, Representative Martin. I do appreciate your efforts to try and provide some additional funding for the department. I would just say that in the past, the department has gotten less general fund support than we are proposed to get in this current budget. So I believe in the last biennium, we got close to 29% of our funding from general fund sources, or what we would call true general fund. And we recognize the importance of this money going to the trails. So I would just offer that we are okay with the funding that we currently get and the splits you have outlined. And rather than see the fee go up $15, I think we're fine. As long as we continue to get the general fund that we've gotten, or that's proposed in this current budget, we're fine with the split as it is.
Mr. Chairman, I would draw that suggestion. So let's go with the original proposal.
Thank you. Representative Martin, Representative Ordway?
I think that's going to handle it because I would adamantly oppose raising the resident rate any more than the $10.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin?
Thank you. So we're back at the chart and the motion is to accept the fee structure per the chart that was just shown here previously. However, there was considerable discussion as to whether or not we should further increase per the chart the $119. So are we sticking with the $119 or we want to consider increasing that?
That is my motion, to stay with the chart,
Right.
which is the recommendation of the Maine Snowmobile Association.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Hepler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this is a question for Rachel. Rachel, could you pull that that scrap of paper up one more time? Make sure I got it all.
I lost my mute button. Yes, I also emailed it out to everybody as well. It is an image file.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Hepler, did you have another question? Representative Ordway?
Yeah, just quick, and I don't want to get involved too bad with. We know New Hampshire's $149 for out of state. Do we know what maybe Massachusetts or Vermont have for out of state registry? I know Vermont's mandatory insurance that we don't have, but does anybody off the top of their head know what those states are at with out of non-resident registrations? If we were to go there, I don't know why we would, but maybe we might.
Anyone have any information? Rachel?
Vermont, 225.
I did pull some of those numbers after our work together. I don't have clear data on Massachusetts because I think they do registration a little differently, but it looks like a Massachusetts resident, it's $44 for 2 years and $33 each year for non-residents. But they may have a different type of registration in addition to like the use registration. That was not as clear. But in New Hampshire, it's $129 for a resident, $149 for a non-resident, and that's hold on, sorry. Sorry, for a snowmobile club member, it's $99 for a resident and $119 for a non-resident. And if you're not a club member, it's $129 for a resident and $149 for a non-resident. In Vermont, in-state is $185 and out-of-state is $225. And I did pull numbers related to some of the Canadian provinces as well. New Brunswick's $265 plus $185 as a tax. Quebec, it's depends a little bit on when you register, but $340 or $420, and those are Canadian dollars. And Nova Scotia, $150 if an early bird registration, or $200 if you register not as an early bird.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Curry?
Thank you, Representative Landry. Based on what Ms. Olson just shared, at the risk of this going longer or necessitating another tabling, I wonder, is there a workable avenue where there is a discounted rate for out-of-state folks who are members of clubs? If that's the primary issue, is that even a thing? Is that possible?
Any discussion on that? I think we went down that road with 8 years.
Could I speak?
Representative
to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's John Martin. I can tell you from my experience, trying to get people to sign up on the clubs when they come in is a very difficult one. And what we have, at least in my hometown, what they have started at the stores is having a box out there and asking for contributions. And that's actually worked better than trying to force them to try the Joy Club. So that's been helpful. And that money's been going obviously to the local club to help them in terms of attempting to help the grooming, for example. But I don't see us, we haven't got the women or men power to go out there and get people selling memberships to clubs.
Thank you. Representative Ordway?
Yeah, we went for Senator Curry. We went down that road last year. And, it was not a pretty road. I don't think it's working all that well for New Hampshire.
Right.
I like the concept of it, but I don't think it's workable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Joe or Mike, do you know that if the Canadians are paying their groomers an hourly wage to groom trails up in Canada?
I'm not sure if I'm unmuted. Can you hear me, Representative Lyford?
Yes, I can.
As far as I know, and Joe probably has more info, but they are totally 100% paid people. Their groomers are paid, their maintenance people are paid. It's a totally different system than we have, whereas ours are all volunteer help, or for the most part. Just to go along with the Vermont system, theirs a lot different than anybody else. They're a completely separate entity, and they have to have their own liability insurance and things like that. That's why their rate's a lot higher, because they don't have, I believe they've only got 5,000 miles. Joe can confirm that, but theirs is a lot different than ours. And part of the Maine Snowmobile Association's discussions were to try to keep our prices at or below New Hampshire so that they will register in Maine and come here to ride.
Thank you.
Representative Lyford.
My questions were answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, did you have something to add to that?
No, I was just going to reiterate on Mike, but he answered your questions, I think.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Let's vote.
Seeing none, let's vote on this as somebody suggested. Linda, would you call the roll, please?
I will, and just to be clear, this is an ought to pass as amended?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We could start from the other end of the horseshoe and give Representative Lyford a break. Representative John Martin?
Yes.
Representative Nedu?
No.
Representative Alley?
Yes.
Representative Ordway?
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin?
Yes.
Representative Terrio?
Yes.
Representative Landry?
Yes.
Senator Dill?
Yes,
Senator Black?
I think he left.
Oh. Senator Curry?
Yes.
Representative Hepler?
Yes.
Representative Mason?
Yes.
And Representative Lyford?
Yes.
So that gives us 11 in favor of the motion, 1 no and 1 absent.
Thank you, Linda. I'll now close the work session on LD 280, an act to increase funding for snowmobile trails and capital
Not yet.
equipment.
Sorry.
Wait.
I would just like to ask Representative Nato what she would like her minority report to be. Sorry.
I think the fee should be increased for the out-of-staters to mirror New Hampshire.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. Fee for out-of-staters increased to
mirror the New Hampshire fees of $149 for out-of-staters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Rachel?
No, I did not. I just wanted to clarify about the minority report for LD 445. I need to wait for you to close this before I ask for clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
thank you. So Rachel, Representative Neto's motion was not necessarily ought not to pass. It's ought to pass as correct.
Yes, sorry, my mistake. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Any other points? Seeing none, we'll close that. The bill passed 11-1 with 1 absent. Additional questions, Rachel?
I just wanted to, back for LD 445, those who voted against the ought not to pass motion, if they wanted to continue with the minority report that had been expressed earlier, or if they were suggesting a different, and by they, I mean as individuals.
Who voted against again?
Let's see.
I can give you that information. Am I getting feedback? The minority report would be Representative Lyford, Representative Mason, Representative Terrio, and Representative Alley.
Representative Lyford, did you want to address that with Rachel?
Rachel, what are you asking for again?
What you would like your report to be for LD 445.
Ought not to pass?
No.
I'm struggling to phrase this. Am I?
It's probably ought to pass.
Ought to pass.
It's either your original bill or as the amendment was put out, Representative Lyford.
Ought to pass.
As amended, the amendment that I had suggested, or do you want your original bill?
Oh, that's fine. Your amendment would be great.
As amended.
Thank you.
Not a lot. Get a lot of feedback here.
Yeah, I don't know who's got a lot of people in the background there.
I believe that's Joe Higgins, ACF.
Joe, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mason.
You're muted.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with Representative Lyford along the same lines.
And that's the ought to pass as amended, giving the department, authorizing the department to promulgate rules to implement with a 3-year experimental season, 22 to 24.
Yes. Yeah.
Representative Terrio.
Yes, same thing. Yep.
Okay. And Representative Alley.
You're muted, Representative.
Representative Alley.
You're muted, Representative Alley. Representative Alley. You're still muted.
How about now?
That's better.
Okay. Yes, I'm going along with Senator Dill and the other one.
Well, Senator Terrio.
The amendment that I had suggested.
Yes, ought to pass, and I'm going with the amendment.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I apologize. I didn't ask in the interim.
Hey, thank you. Anything else, Rachel? Linda, do you have anything else for us?
I just want to make sure, and I could probably ask Rachel this later, but while we're on the subject, on 445, when we did the second vote for ought not to pass, is it the same motion and the same second? I had Representative Ordway motion and the second by Representative Danny Martin on the original. Is it the same or were there different people?
Same.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to double check. Thank you very much.
Also, Linda, didn't you want Representative Ordway, now that he's on camera,
Yes,
asking
thank
if you
you.
wanted to vote on 199 since you were present for the discussion, Representative Ordway? 199 was actually
Ought to pass.
ought to pass. 11-0, it was the one to amend certain fish and wildlife laws related provisions.
I would vote yes on it.
Yes.
Wonderful. Very good. That's everybody then.
Is that it, Linda?
Yes, I'll have to let Senator Black know that he still needs to vote on that one, but yes.
Okay, good. Rachel, all
I
set?
think so, yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
To adjourn?
Vote to adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Before we
wants
go,
to say something.
yeah, before we go,
Commissioner?
Thank you. I might be mistaken, but were we not going to relook at LD 142? So that's the bear bill that came back with a substantial fiscal note that we were not anticipating, and we were hoping the committee could either separate the fee portion or reconsider that.
Did you want to separate the fiscal note from that somehow? Was that it?
Or if we could separate so the fiscal note's caused by a reduction in the fee. So if we could separate the fee portion or and move everything else where I don't want to lose all the other good parts of that bill just because of the fiscal note associated with the reduction in fee, which is in large part that on our end just to try and promote more participants.
yeah, we have a way to fix that, and we're going to bring it up
Great.
In the future. So it has not been forgotten, but thank you for reminding us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anything else? Representative Lyford.
Thank you. Senator Dill, now we won't be meeting the rest of the week, but we will Monday.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we had a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? None?